They don't have a shorter countdown?
That's all they got. It's a little long.
I felt like I was boarding a Virgin Air.
It's a little long, but we do what we can. Welcome to episode 950 of the iFanboy Pick of the Week podcast. And happy to be here, guys. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get on with it.
All right. We'll give everyone a couple minutes. I should probably post that we're live. 1 second. We'll just give everyone a couple minutes to join. While we do that, oh shit! I never sent you guys the script.
I was just about to say, like, I was looking at my email being
hold
like,
on.
I tell
I knew
Conor?
I'd forget something. Hold on. You probably need that. 1 second.
This is what it feels like to be me.
Josh,
all the time.
Ryan, check your emails. Your 1 second. That's not where that goes. Well, this is good. We're letting people join. All right. Sent. Where's the swooshing noise? Okay. You should have it. Let me know if you don't have it.
Wait, what email app do you use?
Just
Apple.
The native Apple app.
I use a different one, but I think it uses the same swoosh sound, and so I was like, does he use it?
I think they all use some form of swoosh.
No new messages.
All right. Well,
So if you were worried that Josh and I looked up a bunch of answers in advance, fear not, dear listener.
He'd have no cause to be worried about. After
Yeah, I
many
wouldn't
years,
worry
he
about that.
knows.
It's
He
been
knows
19 years. I
He's
said
just
that.
being certain I'm reading the books on time.
It's
Can
in
you
the
just put it in
sent.
Slack because
Yes, I can put it in Slack. I put it in the sent. It's sent though. All right, hold on 1 second.
it
All
left
right,
yours.
fine.
Now it's in the void.
Ryan, do you want me to text it to you?
No, I got it. I'm good.
Okay, Ryan got it. All right, it's in Slack, Josh.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right.
All right. Hey, how's it going?
Good. All right, let me know when you got it. So
I
then
got
we'll
it.
just quickly go over.
Good.
I have it here printed.
I can use it to cover. Can I hide my own self in here? I can't.
What are you trying to do?
I don't want to look at my face because I'll stare at it the whole time, and I don't want to. So I put the script over top of it. That's
Okay.
normal. I looked up an article about it. I was like, does everyone?
Oh no,
else just look at their face the
everyone
whole time?
stares at themselves. That's why this last couple years have been terrible for mental health. All right.
That's the only reason.
No, it's one of the reasons. It's why plastic surgery is spiked. Because anyway,
I was
So-
telling my wife earlier today, I'm really happy with myself from the neck up.
all right. So what we're gonna do is the patron pick, the quick pause for the ad break after the patron pick, and then after 20 emails is the next break where, let's see, we do the report, and then thank you to the patrons. So Josh, didn't you have the patron powers?
Okay.
And then I'll read the I'll read the interior ad, and then we go back to the emails. So that's just keep that in the back of your brain. Cool. Anything else?
My
We're
pizza
good?
should be here shortly, so I'm just gonna take
Oh,
a
great.
quick
Perfect.
break when that shows up.
Perfect.
Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Wow, you activated a strong sense memory like that hasn't been. I haven't heard that in years.
Wise men say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
Oh, hold on.
Never lower your eyes to an enemy. That and when they find Splinter's dead, I can see his little turtle robot mouth going, Splinter?
All right. So thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. We aren't going to really engage with the chat, unlike on the Patreon Hangouts, just because this is the show. But thank you. We appreciate it. We will sort of keep our eye on it. But just don't want to think we're ignoring you. Anything else? I almost forgot to bring my iPad up here.
Cal did well with his little Fiesta Latina dance. It's very cute.
All right, 1 second.
Is it Latina because the dance item itself is feminine?
La Fiesta.
Ah, okay. There you
So
go.
his school did a whole big thing for Hispanic Heritage Month, and this was sort of their evening party for it, and he did a baile de cuerpo, a body dance. So he's like touching hands, shoulders, he's in Spanish, basically.
All right. We all set? Ready to go? We are recording. I believe we're recording. We should be recording. If I hit this button, will it stop? No, it's recording. Okay, great. We're recording, so we're good on that. Let me just fix this. All right. Ready to go? Episode 950. Let's do this in one take.
I'm not doing a second one. It doesn't matter.
All right. In 3, 2. This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 950, brought to you by Existential Angst. iFanboy listeners just like you. And we're live to tape. All right, in 3, 2. Hello, my name is Conor Kilpatrick. This is my co-host, Josh Flanagan.
Hey there.
And joining us in the Ron Richards Memorial Third Chair this week, Dr. Ryan Haupt.
Just
It's
real quick,
morphin' time.
he's not dead yet, right?
Not yet.
I mean, the Dark Rider comes for us all.
That's true. That's where the existential angst comes in. Welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 950. It's the show 19 years in the making, and we are iFanboy. We like comic books, and every week we read a bunch of our comics. One of us picks the book they like the best. We call it the Pick of the Week. We talk about that book, other books in the week, listener mail, goofy nonsense, and that's how the show normally goes. But this week we're celebrating a 950th episode with an all-listener email show. So after we talk about the Pick of the Week and after we talk about the Patron Pick, we're going right into the emails. And so here's first, and also we're going live. We're broadcasting live over YouTube right now. So it'll be a little bit looser and wackier show. If this is your first episode for some reason, maybe you check out the week before for a more accurate portrayal of how the show normally
Wait,
goes.
how was last week's show?
I think pretty good.
I think it was. I think you're right.
I think it was a good show.
Ryan wasn't on it, right?
No.
That helps.
That's
That's
nothing
one.
to do with it.
That's one.
That helps.
Keep track of those. There's
So-
your drinking game.
So I just realized I covered up most of the space on my desk. I have nowhere to put the paper I'm done using. Anyway, spoiler warning. There's some spoilers. There might be some spoilers. We're hardly talking about any books this week. Exercise some caution this week. Josh, for the third year in a row, has the pick on the anniversary episode.
This feels like some sort of conspiracy. I didn't realize
Which
that.
is strange because with the three of us, it's not like an equal,
Yeah.
And then also, actually up until like 2 weeks ago, I was going to have the pick, but then we had to switch the schedule around for Ryan. And
we
then you
had
went with it. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, thank you, Josh. You have the pick.
So the thing is that in order to prepare for this show, I got started very early. So hopefully I remember the details of Nightwing 118. Thank God you flashed it up on the screen. So I had to know. And that's not a joke. I was like, and there it is. Perfect. All right. So the story here is basically that this is the last issue of the arc and of the series. I think not the series, but
It's the last issue of the Tom Taylor's and Bruno Redondo's run. Yeah.
Of a very long run, and a very successful run. I think we, like Connor, this has to be your favorite Dick Grayson run. And
it's the second best run after Chuck Dixon started the book, and it did like I don't know, ungodly number of issues.
Well, he was on all the books too, so
Yeah,
he was doing Robin and Nightwing and Birds of Prey,
and I think at one point also one of the Batman books. I don't know, he was doing them all.
So, I mean, the deal here is this is why it's the pick. Endings are harder than beginnings, and they're more satisfying when they're done correctly.
Yes.
And if I am reading through this, it actually felt like it sort of wrapped up pretty quickly, but I think a lot of the groundwork had been done ahead of time. And, but we had a good sort of street level, confrontation with the villain, the sort of final bit. But by the time it had started, you knew like he had no chance. The dog was shot. That was very sad. Did the dog make it?
Yeah, he's in the final shot.
They did not address it enough, and
you can't. That's okay. You can't kill. You can give us the moment where you make us think they did, but you can't kill the dog.
I mean, in real life, that dog never survives, but it's a comic book, and he needs to survive.
Oh yeah, no, totally fine. Because the dog has a heart, I think. But I think the deal is that the sort of message is, that Dick sort of gives to us and to Heartless at the end is just like, you're not, I don't know why people are like you. I don't know why you're special. Why you think you're special. I don't know why you have to hurt other people. It's wrong. And I won't let you. And it really is, that's not new, not for superheroes, but it really is distilling down what these books are about. That's what a superhero is about. That's what a good guy is about, or a good girl, or whoever you are. And that speaks to me. I mean, that's one of the reasons you read these. People, I mean, like it was very popular to be like, these are male power fantasies. It isn't. To me, it's like the West Wing, or or Superman, or this is like, have there be one person who has some power, who is doing the right thing because it is the right thing to do. And
sorry, I interrupt you. That's why I love, and let me switch that. That's why I hate the modern impulse to make every hero like a legacy totem hero. I think it's much more powerful when you have someone who just chooses to do the right thing, not because it's destiny, not because they were foretold in the prophecy. It's because Spider-Man got his powers. He first chose the wrong path, and then he chose the right one. I think it's much more powerful to make the choice, and much more heroic, quite frankly, to make the choice to be good, rather than because though you're a long line of arrow shooters who somehow ended up on an island by accident.
And even though Nightwing was chosen in a way by Batman, it's really actually very, it's probably Jerry Robinson, I would say, like I had the idea, like Batman finds this other kid who's had his parents taken from him. And there's all the reasons that's happened and changed over the year. But ultimately, let's just say that crime took this kid's parents too, and he needed somebody to take him in. This will be addressed later. But in that story, any good version of it always has Dick being the one who really makes that choice, because everybody's like, this is a bad idea. And so he made that choice a long time ago. And in a lot of ways, I think what's really nice is that, and I don't mean to make this so general, but it really comes down to the writer specifically nailing down what it is that is attractive about this character. And it's that, given his background, he became better than his father in a lot of ways. And I think that is attractive, both as
his father Bruce or his father John?
His father Bruce.
Okay.
You know what I mean by that.
Say, like, no John slander on this show.
No. I mean, I think even
no, he's definitely better than Bruce.
Right, he's better than Bruce, and Bruce acknowledges that. That's what
he's emotionally whole.
Yeah, that's what a kid wants. That's what a parent.
You can have a relationship.
Wants. But in the end, Heartless looks at him. He's like, "Oh, you're angry," and he's like, "I'm just over it. I'm over you. I'm everyone like you. Self-obsessed, greedy, entitled. You thought you could buy strength, but you didn't put in any work. And all that stuff. I just really." It was very rewarding.
The other thing I liked about that and that final confrontation is how, sort of in the way that, like, when real life tragedies happen, the person who committed the crime is often now going unnamed. Like, we're just not giving that person space in the discourse and the dialogue. And that's kind of what Nightwing does here. He basically says, "I'm not going to let the world know that this was you. You're not going to get credit. You're not going to be part of the conversation."
Put the mask back on him, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to be part of the zeitgeist moving forward. You will be forgotten. And I think the threat of being forgotten is, almost a greater punishment than anything else. And I thought it was well articulated and not something I've seen super frequently in comics before.
Yeah,
I mean, this was.
So he's not going to put up a big statue of him in his Nightwing lair, is what you're
right.
saying.
In Bruce, the Nightwing,
Bruce has so many issues. So, I mean, this was a masterfully done finale. I'm just looking at, like, my multi-page view so I can see, like, all the great scenes. And from, Nightwing showing why he's better because his family's there to help him. He's got Bruce, he's got Barbara, he's got Dick, he's got Damian, he's got the Titans. They're all there supporting him. And then the moment we've been waiting for, where Heartless had taken away his ability to fly, basically, and so he thinks he's got Nightwing on the ropes because he can't jump off the building, and then he does, and you get that great almost full page splash of it, and like, we all know these moments are coming, like you said at the beginning of the season.
No, there's nothing,
but like, they were so well executed.
Yeah,
and then this this run has been great. The story of this run has been Bruno Redondo for me.
Yeah, and I was thinking,
look at that cover. It's on the screen right now. Every cover he's done has been a masterful single image.
Yep.
And not to mention, there's a variant cover that I don't know if people saw, which is him running with all of his buddies, and then him running with Bitewing, and then you just sort of see Bitewing's tail, and then Dick, leans back and gives us a little wave. Bruno Redondo came out of nowhere. I mean, we saw him.
Well, the
in
talent.
The talent jumped up. We saw him in Injustice doing really good, solid work, but not to this level. This is, and he's going over to Superman, I think. But that's Dan Moore. Maybe they both are. Oh,
Look at the last page. You've got like the Van Gogh.
Yeah, he colored that page.
Oh my
he did
God.
the whole thing.
And so the whole time I've been talking, I know that I've been talking about the story and I've been talking about the writing, but in my mind, I've been thinking about Bruno Redondo. And as I look through this, there's a lot. It's easy to point out a lot of things, but I think the story with him has to be sort of the overall story. I don't know that I have that much to say about this issue. There's really nice moments. It's done pretty well. It's not like as design heavy as some of the other issues were, but like just in general, like to me, that is the story. That is this guy who, had worked on other stuff and hadn't stood out and got this, starring role on would you say it's a B tier book? It's not like low, it's middle. Anyway, whatever. He got this job that was a big deal for him, I'm sure, or would be for any artist, and just showed everybody who cared to give a damn this incredible set of skills.
He brought the book back.
Yeah,
he did, because I've obviously been reading Nightwing since there's been a Nightwing book in the 90s, and it had fallen off of prominence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to talk or think about the next creative team on this book, but he brought it back to such a level of prominence. It's an multiple Eisner nominated book.
Mm-hmm.
People, all we really have in our spheres is what the iFanbase is talking about, and people are talking about it, reading it, loving it, and it's great because he's an integral part of the DCU. He's a pillar of the DCU. He's been around since 1940. No matter what Dan DiDio wanted to do to him, he was able to persevere. And I couldn't be happier about this run. And look, this was a really good wiki comics. There was a lot of great books this week.
Mm-hmm.
But when you picked this, I had no problem. I think everyone thought you'd pick Batman and Robin, which we're going to talk about next.
Well, that's why I let off like that. At the end, I was like, okay, these are the two books. Endings are better than beginnings.
Endings are hard.
And harder. Beginnings are easy.
Beginnings are
relatively speaking, because
They're
it's
fun.
really easy to not solve a lot of problems.
Yes.
It's easy to show a bunch of cool new things and get you excited for what's coming up and present some new ideas, but that is not the follow through. That is not the work.
Yeah, it's easy to put Matt Murdock in jail and then walk away. That's right. Calling you out.
So I only have one minor critique for this issue, and that is
there pizza? I was looking through.
No. He calls the mayor, who is his half sister, because she's got to say something dramatic on the phone. But he says, "Madam Mayor," and she says, "Dick, I'm with Oracle." That's not Oracle. That's Batgirl.
Fair. Well, to be fair, the mayor, she doesn't know the intricacies. She's like, that's Oracle, right? Like, she knows her that first. It's like if you see J.K. Simmons in a movie, you go, that's Schillinger. God,
this art is so good. Ryan, I know you're a big Dick Grayson guy. Did you read the Chuck Dixon run?
Oh yeah, that's probably the run that made me the Nightwing fan that I am today. That and the animated series. And I agree with you. I think this is a top tier run that's up there with the Chuck. I think you're right. I think I still probably have a more affection for the Chuck Dixon run. It's been a while since I've reread it. Scott McDaniel was the artist on a lot of that too, and his stuff was great.
So that was amazing. That was like a big deal artist for me, because I think that took place probably before we were really doing iFan. We were writing it, but before the
that was college
part.
That was
so. That was when I was getting back into comics and learning about them. I was like, who is this guy? It was super exciting. Same thing as on the Robin book. You had, oh crap.
We had a lot of people.
Freddie. Yeah. I just remember Freddie Williams a second.
Yeah.
Just like that was a magical time. It's sort of my only point. Just one.
There's an email related to that later, but yeah, that was a magical time. We should also point out, it's a pretty big deal that Tony Zuko, the killer of his parents, gets killed in the issue. Heartless takes his face.
And well, Connor, you haven't mentioned the fact that Dick Grayson whispers his intentions to make an honest woman out of Babs.
Did my heart grow 4 times that day? Whatever that panel, yes, it did.
Yeah.
I'm just glad they didn't break him up. That's all.
In the bit where he takes Zuko's face, I did have to go back and forth a couple of times to see who was getting killed. I was like, wait, because there was the whole scene with his Heartless's father guy,
his Alfred.
I mean, right. I couldn't really see that page very well through the tears welling up when they shot the dog, because I was.
Well, when the dog got shot, I was like, "Oh shit, he's going there," because he brought the dog into this world, and he'll take him right out.
He shouldn't have taken that dog on that walk. That was a bad choice as a pet
You
owner.
don't bring the dog to your crime fight.
Like he was trying to be all cool, but he knew what was up. He wasn't just going to have a confrontation of words in the park.
Fight's going to break out.
Yeah,
that dog's got 3 legs.
There's also a thing I was going to make a point about that. It's also the dogs that are that kind of tripod are less fleet of foot than dogs who have lost a rear leg, because most mammals carry most of their weight on their front legs.
You can push off, yeah.
So
that, and let's forget the bad guy has a gun that rips out a heart in a single quick.
He uses it on Tony Zuko's face.
It's not well. If you can break for a breastbone, I think it go through the front of a skull. It makes sense. Either way, you don't bring a dog
when it does that?
to a heart taker gunfight.
Well,
simple math.
He needed it.
I mean, I applaud you, Josh. This was not an easy week to make a pick, but I think you made a strong one. So
I honestly, it wasn't that hard when I did that comparison of the two. It really was the one that stood out for me. So, are you saying to me that this wouldn't have been your pick?
I'm saying I'm happy I didn't have to choose.
Huh.
I'm just happy I didn't have to choose.
All right. Thank you.
Let's move on. Those are all the books we wanted to talk about this week. But
no, they're not.
There's a lot of books. We didn't talk about Steve Trevor dying. We didn't talk about Thanagar being destroyed, and only being a couple of Hawk people left. But we'll talk about that another time. But let's move on to the Patron pick at patreon.com/iFanboy. Every patron gets voted to add a book to the rundown. This week, after seeing what Josh made the pick, the overwhelming favorite for the winner of the vote was Batman and Robin Year One from Mark Waid, Chris Somney, Matthias
Lopez probably,
and Clayton Cowles. And this is the sort of, they haven't said it's an offshoot of World's Finest, but it's all, doesn't matter. This is
Year One, isn't it? Doesn't live in that. Is Year One's usually in continuity?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. A reunion of the Daredevil team, Mark Waid and Chris Somney. The celebrated Daredevil team.
I think, by the way, an immeasurably better property for the both of them.
Which, this one?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
I think yeah.
Well, first of all, this is the Dick Grayson show, apparently. But God, look at that logo. Look how much better that is than that stupid logo in the Batman book. So I have been asking for this book for years. For years and years and years.
I'm kind of shocked it hasn't been.
For on the show or in the articles on the website, I would say my most wanted book was a modern telling of Dick Grayson's time as Robin, because he was there in the Golden Age, he was there in the Silver Age, he went out in the Bronze Age. You got Jason Todd in the Bronze and the Modern Age. You got Tim Drake, obviously, in the Modern Age. You never really got Robin, Dick Grayson in a modern comic book storytelling. You got specials. You had the Robin Year One, the terrific. Dixon.
I just looked that up. You remember the artists were on that?
Marcos Martin and Javier Rodriguez.
Javier Pulido.
Holy
crap!
Oh yeah, no, those miniseries are awesome. We talked about them during the pandemic. But we never really got Dick's time as Robin in it. I don't know if this is ongoing. I don't know if this is mini. I don't know what it is. But we never really got a cool series of the two of them in the beginning times. So I've been asking for that forever. So I was very, very excited for this. And obviously we've been big fans of Mark Waid's DC stuff. We've been fans of Somney's since he was just a guy sketching at Comic-Con. I used to hang out in front of his table.
Mm-hmm. With his hat.
With his flat cap and his beard.
Yep.
I
saw a picture of him, and I haven't seen him in 15 years probably. I saw a recent picture, and I was like, oh. I mean, he's the same age as us, and it wasn't like he looked, but he's just aged like we have. And so, because if you don't see somebody, they're the same person in your mind, which is like a 25-year-old bearded man.
All right, so this is literally just Year One. Dick Grayson. This is his first time out on an adventure with Bruce. First time meeting Jim Gordon, and first time they're sticking with the Harvey Dent is his big bad. Which is what they established in the 90s. And I thought this was great. I thought this was everything I wanted it to be. including a mystery villain at the end who I have no idea who that is, and it's fun.
Yeah, I agree. This was a lot of fun. I think Mark Waid is one of the few writers that I would trust to find a way to have a not tacky or silly, overly silly reason for why a crime fighter would bring a kid along. And I do think he manages to figure that out somewhat. So, while still acknowledging that like this is a ridiculous situation.
And not hanging. Like, I think a lot of lesser writers would harp on that too much. Like every time they showed up, everyone would make a comment about it, and it would like we've done it. It's been there. Let's sort of get going through it. I think he handled that well in that way, like you said. Even like because when he showed up, they showed up on the rooftop with Gordon. You know, it just like he just says, "You got to be kidding me," and then they move on. You know, there's not a conversation about it, and I know. You know, but I guess we've read it so often, it would be so easy to go down that hole and to resist that. It just shows what a economical writer he is.
And they also show how Dick is ready for this, right? Like he jumps off the roof and Gordon's freaking out, and he's like, "We're 30 stories up," and Bruce is like, "That's where he's meant to be," you know, like he's most comfortable there.
You know, at the same time, then in the scene after that, you know, we've also seen the scene where Robin goes rushing in ahead of time.
Yeah.
And for years and years and years, every version of that story is Batman giving him a big dressing down and not talking to him or taking him off the street or whatever. And so I was like, oh, here we go with this again. And they didn't do it. Like there was a little bit of, hey, you know, be careful. You're standing on the bomb or whatever. But we didn't. We got to have them be fun superheroes instead of that rage. And like that, those little things I think are what made this fun. They didn't really stand out. Except for in comparison to what I've read a million, because I was like, all right, there they go again. Because we've seen that so many times. Robin, don't. You're not ready for this.
Right.
Taking you off the street. How many times have you read that?
And it's not fun.
No.
Right. It was one of the things I really liked about there wasn't a lot to like and enjoy about the movie Civil War, Alex Garland movie. But one of the things I liked was when Kirsten Dunst's character says, like, no, you're too young to come along. And her partner points out, he's like, weren't you basically the same age when you started doing this? And she was like, yeah. And they kind of just like had to accept that. Yeah. Like when you become the expert or the old hand at something, it's easy to dismiss the young folks as not ready to tag along. I mean, but like if they don't get to tag along,
he is way younger than Bruce started.
But that's when Bruce started training. I mean, Bruce was around that age when he started his. Yeah,
I don't know when we're.
Well, that always changes. He was like 8 when they're. I like the little tribute to Burt Ward at the first scene where he's wearing a little red sweater over his.
Oh, shirt. I didn't see that. Right, just because it looked so natural. I mean, this is what I'm saying. You know, Daredevil's fine. It was great.
That was a great run.
But look. You're gonna tell me Chris Samney wasn't born to draw.
He's been waiting to draw this book his entire professional life.
Right.
If you follow him on Instagram like I do, or you've talked to him at a convention, he fucking loves Batman.
It's good Two-Face too.
He's been wanting to do this. He's constantly putting up Batman sketches. Like he's ready.
Look at there's some page. Okay, so if you're looking at this page 17, they're facing down. Two-Face. It's good Two-Face, yeah. And just the expressions and body language in there. And look at that third panel where he's like, Batman, why isn't he murdering us? Like, look at that cartooning. This is cartooning. And I say that with every bit of respect in the world. Comic books should be cartooning. That's what they were early enough, instead of sort of becoming, they shouldn't all be that, but there's none of the grim, you know, impressionistic trying to impress us stuff. It's like, let's make a Batman book look ageless and fun and melodramatic. And, you know, the guy has a better sensibility than, you know, almost anybody else.
He's one of the best storytellers currently working, for sure.
Yeah. But then also just like the energy and acting that he puts in his character. You can tell what his characters are thinking because of what they look like. This book doesn't need a single word balloon or thought balloon, because faces and postures he's got down, and he does it with like an economy of line. He's covering half the page in black ink.
So much ink.
The best way.
And in true Somni style, these pages are chock full. He doesn't, and this is not a knock on artists who don't use backgrounds. It's a time-saving measure, you know. But he doesn't do. That's not Chris Somni's style. I mean, there's a couple of panels here that have no backgrounds, but
it's drawn.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No tricks going on here and if there are, then he covered it up, and fair enough. All this saying, by the way, I would have looked at this book and told you it was Dave Stewart or something like this. So
Right.
Mateus Lopez
Great colors.
killed it.
And you mentioned it in the very beginning of this conversation, but this Batman, the Batman that's in World's Finest, it's like kind of my favorite kind of Batman. You know, he's
Not that angry. He's not like,
the Justice Machine, unfeeling, no friends, no family.
we had a lot of fun with the Grant Morrison Batman Alone Batman, but it is tiring.
I like this Batman he's still Batman. He's still terribly frightening for people who should be frightened. He's still very good at what he does, but he has friends. He's got family. He's able to smile on occasion. Even,
you know what else this issue includes that I think is a classic Batman thing that you mentioned, Burt Ward, earlier, a trap. He and Robin get
yeah.
That's great. I love it when they get trapped and they have to find a way out.
This is the same sort of Bruce Wayne who showed up in the Nightwing book we just talked about.
Yes.
Same sort of deal. Like it's like he's dealt with his issues a bit and can appreciate his family. And
I mean, to be fair, Jason hasn't died yet. But still, I don't like the, gargoyle Batman.
Now, has Damian technically been born at this point in the continuity?
Why did you even have to do that? Why did you have to bring that name into this fun conversation we were having? I don't think he's been born at this point, but who the heck knows? Plus, look at that Alfred, man. That is how Alfred should look. And he's alive, and he's serving tea, and he's eating snacks because no one else is there to eat him. Mark Waid's a treasure. He was out in the DC wilderness for so long because of his disagreements with the regime at the time, and he's just been born to write these characters.
If we're going to give Dan DiDio any credit, it is that he caused this to be able to happen, and we had to wait long enough for it so that we could really appreciate it.
And I'm willing to wait for this quality.
I'm much like Aaron Burr. I'm willing to wait for it. But what I'm saying, my grandfather was a fire and brimstone preacher. I could do it the whole thing, but I won't.
The whiskey I'm drinking is called 1776, Josh. If you want to get into that too. So
New York 1776. Pardon me, Aaron Burr, sir. Well, excuse me.
All right, I really like the Kevlar capes they had on, so it wasn't like
that was probably my favorite panel in the issue was
just
when
Robin being thrown out there.
I want to also point out, because it is worth pointing out, is in that panel the sound effects are bam, blam, pew, and pading.
He gets them all.
Yeah, like they're 4 different ones. They didn't scrimp on that.
Great book. Great book. Really great. Once they announced it, I was excited. It met all my expectations. I am very excited. I'm sure you'll hear about it a lot on this show going forward.
Look at these layouts. Look at the pages. Like he's
the best.
Yeah, he's right up there. He's occupying a place that Stuart Eminem used to occupy. Not exactly the same style, but
interesting. Okay.
Also, Stuart Eminem could do this style. But he could also do it like Salvador Roca if you needed him to.
He could do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right. Break for the ad. Ryan, is your internet okay?
It should be.
You froze a couple of times.
I haven't seen that.
Is anybody using your internet while you're?
No, I don't.
I haven't seen that happen.
I don't hear the
Josh. You've been fine, but it's fine. It's fine. You're okay now. You're just during the Nightwing conversation. You were
okay. Hang on.
You were pixelating and froze with it.
Are you torrenting?
Listen, there might be a torrent of bits falling into my computer.
Turn off Pirate Bay, whatever it was.
Oh, you can't do that anymore. That thing's a disaster.
Okay. All right. So, like I said, emails. We'll try to get through. Let's answer them, but not go into hour-long answers on them. But
Ryan and I are here, right?
I know. That's why I said it. We ready?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so in the chat, Ryan's audio glitched a few times. So just keep an eye on if. Anyway, it's fine. These things happen. All right, we're coming back in 3, 2. All right, let's jump into the main event for this anniversary show. The audience questions.
Hold on. We didn't rate.
Oh shit, you're right.
We didn't do. I thought you were going to do it after the break or whatever.
I just forgot about it because we're so out of the format. All right, let's go back and rate, then I'll drop it in.
Right.
3, 2, All right, let's do ratings on Batman and Robin Year One. Ratings. Hope everyone in the chat is saying rating. Yep, they're all saying ratings. Excellent. All right, so ratings of Batman and Robin Year One. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5.
Josh, can you give it a 5 out of 5 if it wasn't the pick?
Sure, you can.
I can. I can do anything I want. There's no rules.
You can
and
give
if
it a
there are,
6.
I make them up. 4.9.
Yeah, 5. This is great. Nothing, not a thing wrong with it.
All right, and would you have read this otherwise?
Absolutely.
Oh, sure.
All right, and are you sticking with it?
Yes.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's time we give it a pass.
Look, guys, I just realized I can make the bat signal.
You can. All right, that's cool. All right, so
Is it?
patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks if you're voting for your patron. If you consider being a patron today, thank you for considering. Now let's move on to the main event of the show, of the anniversary show. It's the audience questions. We asked you over the last month or so to send us emails, and you did your job. And now it's our turn to answer them. But before we get to that, quickly, what are we drinking? Josh, water, juice,
Main Zone Moxie.
Mox? Is that
Ooh,
root
wow.
beer? Is that root beer?
No, it's a
No.
very specifically regional craft soda to the New England.
It's not. It's not. I mean, you could say it's it's soda. It's what Maine made. It's been around my entire life. Most people can't handle it. If you, I didn't like it forever, and then one day I did. You got to drink it cold, and this is getting warm. But it's like, like when people talk about like what Coke and Dr. Pepper used to taste like when it was supposed to be like quote unquote medicine. It's probably closer to that.
Like
I couldn't
cough
tell
syrup?
you. It's not unlike that.
I
don't know if it has star anise in it, but I feel like that's the thing it would have.
so I think I saw a commercial for cough syrup, like a cough syrup alternative, and they showed a bunch of kids. They showed some kids who didn't want to drink it. And I just had this visceral flashback to being a kid, and there was nothing worse than cough syrup when you were a kid. Just that taste.
This is better than cough syrup because it has a shitload more sugar.
I should hope so. All right, Josh drinking cough syrup. Ryan,
I cracking a can of Athletic Brewing Free Wave Hazy IPA. It's a non-alcoholic IPA.
I thought you were drinking whiskey.
I have a little whiskey as a backup, but
Non-alcoholiolic IPA. Like then
all the great taste of a
super
hoppy IPA and none of the benefits.
I've been exploring the
kick you in the balls.
The non-alcoholic beer space lately, and there's some really good ones. There's some really good brands developing, and it's been something I've been going to more and more frequently. Just break up the night a little bit or have a little bit of an easier go of it. And Athletic has been making some good ones. Lagunitas has a couple of good ones. Sierra Nevada has a good one. And Guinness, actually, the non-alcoholic Guinness, fantastic. Would drink it just to drink a Guinness. So, yeah.
All right. That sounds awesome. I mean, between the two of you, I don't know what I would do. I think I would just choose the firing squad. And then I'm drinking a Negroni, which is what I drank last year. It's a nice sipping drink, so I don't pound them and thus say or do something stupid that's being recorded. Like that time I passed out on the show almost. All right.
You know what tastes gross?
What?
Alcohol. To me.
There's not an alcohol taste.
But see, Josh, what if you could get the piney, bitter taste of hops, but with no buzz?
First of all, I don't like any of that. And second of all, I made my little foray into alcohol and I was like, you know what? I just feel terrible.
You were drinking margaritas for a while.
I know, but apparently if you don't drink for like 35 years or so and then you start, you're not ready for that. You just feel terrible. And
Lagunitas makes a hopped sparkling water that's called a hoppy refresher, and it's fantastic.
Also, I don't like the taste of any of it. I tried an IPA once and I was like, why on earth would you do this? You know what's awesome? Pepsi. No one's.
I don't. All right, let's get to the emails. So you wrote to contact@ifanboy.com. We thank you very much. And as we always do, for the sake of time, have removed all the platitudes that almost all of you were very kind enough to put in your emails about how enjoying the show or how long you've been listening and things, telling personal stories. We do appreciate that. We read all of them, and we cannot tell you how much it means. So thank you very much. But we took them out for the sake of time. So guys, I think we know the first email, right?
Could I have time to prepare for this?
The first email was, that's what makes it fun, is the one we solicited ourselves. It came from Greg M. from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Scott H. from Portland, Oregon, Joshua H. from Australia. Who are your top 5 artists right now? Current artists, top 5. I'm going to say Dan Mora, and I'm going to say Chris Somney. I'm going to say, oh wow, when you're on, your brain goes blank.
Well, I started thinking about this while listening to a recent episode that I wasn't on. And
Smallwood.
I have Greg Smallwood. So Chris Somney was hard to not include in mine, but I actually think I went Bruno Redondo instead of the 2 artists we talked about today. So for me, it's Bruno Redondo, Fiona Staples, Greg Smallwood, Daniel Warren Johnson, and Dan Mora. So 2 Dans.
Dang, all right. Mora, Sammy, Smallwood, Daniel Warren Johnson. I need a 5th.
I'll go for a minute, and then you can. Smallwood. Kev Walker.
That's a good one.
Stan Sakai.
Ooh, I like that.
That's a good one.
Daniel Warren Johnson.
Yeah.
There's somebody, and I'm not thinking of it. Like,
it's tough. The
upsetting me.
The last place is always tough.
What's the? I haven't been reading the
There's
book.
so many good artists.
What's the woman who does the romance book with Tom King?
Elsa Charretier.
Oh yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking about Bill Quee Everly, but yes.
Well, her too. I mean,
you can make an argument for either of those people.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel good about putting Chartier on the list because she's like in the Darwin school.
Yeah.
Just because I'm trying to figure out who I want to say and I can't think of anybody.
I can make a case for Ramita.
I'm gonna say Leandro Fernandez.
I almost included Ramita.
I mean, we have so many people are putting names in the chat room. People are saying Doc Shaner, who I would say, but I don't think he's not currently working on a book.
Well,
so
Fiona
Staples, Saga's coming out.
Saga's coming out.
Ish.
Saga just came out like a week ago.
I mean, Doc Shaner's great. I don't see him a lot.
That's what I mean. Riley Rossmo's great, but I wouldn't put him in my top 5. Pepe Larraz is great. I wouldn't put him in my top 5 though.
I really like Jorge Fornes and Jorge Jimenez on the Batman book. I think
there's a lot of great artists.
Basically, a lot of those Spanish guys are, Juan Ferreira. He's Argentinian, but there's a lot of those guys.
I almost have Isad Ribic on my list.
Oh, I mean, there's an argument to be made for that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Marcus Martin hasn't done a book in a while, but man, when he was putting out stuff.
Steve Lieber. Someone said, I could go with Steve Lieber, but I can't remember the last thing I saw him on.
Josh, do the second email.
Second email from James from Vermont. Ronald Stazak on Discord. I don't get that. Whatever.
By the way, James from Vermont sent a lot of great questions in.
Mm-hmm.
And normally we try to stack people's questions, but each question is fairly long and they're all good. So instead I peppered them throughout the script. So James from Vermont's going to show up several times.
I've been a listener since 2008 and a patron since the beginning. My dog. I've been thinking about this question for several years. Back in 2009, Josh chose Scalped number 30 as pick of the week. I thought it was 27. As pick of the week for the week of Blackest Night 1 came out, and some people on the internet were mad. It occurred to me a few years ago that a similar reaction today would be unthinkable. I cannot imagine how a noticeable contingent of people on the internet would be angry if an iFanboy pick of the week were Petrolhead in the same week as something like Absolute Power or number 1 or Blood Hunt number 1 released. Do you agree? And if so, why do you think that is? Further, is your audience more mature than it used to be? Is your audience significantly smaller than it was? Have the kinds of obnoxious comic book fans who would get mad about something like this just found different outlets and targets for their rage? Is it that the big two, to read them all? Is it the big two events just don't have the same juice they used to? Does it make a difference that you're no longer posting written reviews of the pick of the week? All of the above.
I think it's all of the above.
I think those are all definitely reasons. I think, I would say that the folks who are still listening now, are pretty acclimated to us. And so if you are the kind of person who really is into the big event book, and even that, the status of that has changed considerably, which I think
that's one of his points. Yeah.
You kind of know what you're going to get for this. And we're going to talk about craft, we're all older. Everybody, like what gets you excited? Well, it's like, a book that makes you feel something.
I think that everything is different.
Yes.
Blackest Night is all about feelings. There's will, there's hope, there's rage, there's
15
fear.
years ago, which by the way is nuts. That can't be true. Yeah, I guess it is. We were doing this website iFanboy.com daily. We had daily articles. We had like a community of a very active and big community of people that would hang out all day on iFanboy and comment and argue in the comments. And we had a whole community around that. And I think when that's happened, when you're in the, I don't say the muck, that's the wrong word, but when you're in that every day, it's different than when you're just sort of listening to a show once a week. I think there's a lot more reasons to get angry back then. And I think people were just younger. We definitely had some younger fans who would get angry. The angriest ones were the younger ones. But it's just different. We do a show once a week versus engaging every day with stuff. And the events are different. And yeah, the audience is smaller for sure. 15 years ago, every podcast audience, if they're around that long, goes down. But he's totally right. Like I couldn't even imagine people freaking out on you like they did that time. But I also think that most of those people were not necessarily seriously freaking out at you. I think
no, but like, I believe
it felt like it because we were in it. It was like PTSD.
History has justified me. I never. God, someone just wrote Phil Hester. I'm sorry. I never took it. That's because I still am like, I know why I picked it, because even then I was like, whatever, I know what an event book is. They're all kind of the same thing. Jeff John's as good as anybody. And also, I look back on Blackest Night as like an exciting moment in comics more than an amazing story.
Right.
I look at it like as a by the numbers thing. I look at Scalped as a masterpiece that happened, and I wouldn't change a thing about that.
I can tell you which book I still recommend to people. when asked for a comic recommendation, I'm telling people to read Scalped before I'm telling them.
Scalped is an all-time great book, but we should be fair. Darkest Night was a really great event. Like as those things go, it was a really great one.
But I mean, but we just talked about two amazing books. One of them still had to be the pick. That's
absolutely. I'm not. We all agreed with Josh. Well, I think Ron and I kind of made fun of Josh a little bit when it happened, only because it was fun to do. Ryan, do 3.
Stephen H. from Wrexham, Wales, United Kingdom. I can't do the accent. I can't do it. I can.
No one can.
Rob Brydon and Anthony Hopkins. I can't.
No.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question since Ryan Reynolds bought our football team. Is it technically possible to get a copy of the UK Weekly 2000 AD as a patron pick? It's available digitally after all, and I'd love to hear the team dissect it. Also, do you think it's due to a deep dive Talksploit? Do you think it's due a deep dive Talksploit at some point, as the impact this 1977 nonstop weekly juggernaut has had on American comics is huge? I dropped the H for you. 2000 AD is on 2,400 issues, no reboot or renumbering. So that's no legacy numbering nonsense necessary.
You just explained a lot of why it's like,
I mean, it's technically possible. I think it's available digitally. So as long as the book's available digitally, you can.
We get them. Like we could read them. It's not like that's a thing that could happen.
The only things that really aren't available for patron picks are things that aren't available digitally because we have to be able to get them digitally because the voting ends hours before we have to record, and 2, it has to be readily available. Like this week, people wanted to vote for these DCUI exclusive books, which would require Josh and Ryan to sign up for DCUI, which is not fair. So it's got to be easily available and it's got to be digital. That's all. So 2000 AD totally could do.
But
people gotta vote for it.
Everything that you're saying about 2000 AD is true, and more so. Like it is incredibly important, and it had a huge impact on comics that I loved, and so many of my favorite creators came from that. I talked to Rob Williams about it in a Talksploit sometime in the last year. It is, for me, it's always just been a thing that like it's this train that is already going, and it is a different flavor from the rest of my books in a week, and it just I couldn't make it a habit. And when I look at it, I think I asked him this, is like I have no idea where to start.
Well, I also think
too much.
I don't think you want us to do a deep dive on it.
I don't know how you would. It wouldn't even scratch the surface.
We don't have enough. I mean, here's my deep dive of a book I've read 4 copies of. Like it wouldn't be fair to the book and the history of it to have someone like us who have no knowledge of it.
context or
talk about this incredibly culturally important book that's got 2,400 issues and you've read 4 of. It doesn't. That would be
two
unfair.
dumbass Americans who can't possibly understand. I watched the documentary. Like, you're not wrong. It is amazing work. I don't think we'd be good at it. And
I'd love to be good at it, but I just haven't read it.
Yeah.
Not our bailiwick.
Dan C. from New Jersey says, given the number of intercompany crossovers we've seen in the recent years, are there combinations that are just never going to work, or could any work given the right creative team? Could a good team fix a flawed concept like Mars Attacks Red Sonja or My Little Pony Transformers Friendship in Disguise?
No.
You don't think so? You think there's?
I think a flawed concept or a bad story or a thing that has been put together without being a story, without being sort of conceived as the good story that is supposed to be, ultimately won't be. I mean, everything's got an exception, but ultimately won't be successful. It might be entertaining, it might be cute, but it won't have the longevity of a story that was conceived in the correct way. And obviously there's a way to do it, but for the most part, those are all just marketing gimmicks to get somebody to pick up an issue because they look at it a certain way. There are exceptions. Mark Russell can do a Flintstones, but he owned the shit out of it in order to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think any artist can make a weird concept work. I mean, people mentioned Batman Elmer Fudd in the chat that Tom King did. Right now, there's a totally bonkers.
It was a lark.
Right, but that doesn't matter. It's just one issue.
Well, I guess I don't know if I agree with the idea that the concept is inherently flawed. The concept just
weird.
Not even weird. It's just like, well, it's kind of what Josh is saying. It's like it's only flawed if the only thing that's behind it is a concept. If there's an actual idea, like,
well, that's where the writer comes in.
Yeah,
the concept is the concept. The writer has to have
I'm probably being too harsh on it because you're right, and like that has been a thing where I'm sure some film executive has been like, we want to do this and this, and someone's like, fine, and I'm sure it's happened. But in comics, because they're so catch as catch can, fly, I don't think the best comics come from that, but
no, but you could do it. There's a really weird one happening right now. We haven't talked about the show yet, called Multiverses something, which is written by Brian Q. Miller, who was terrific, and it's
Batgirl.
It's a Warner Brothers crossover, so it's got the Justice League, it's got Bugs Bunny, it's got a bunch of and Wizard of Oz, and it's fun. So I think anyone can execute on a weird idea. I think. Josh.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
He said flawed, so I stuck with that.
No, I hear you. I just don't know that I don't know that I fully accepted the premise of the question as written.
Fair. Aldwin.
Aldo's got 3 questions, so let's go one at a time.
Okay. Connor and Josh have previously commented that there are, quote, house styles of comic book artists at DC and Marvel Comics. Given this observation, who are 3 current comic book artists whom you would like to draw, quote, all the DC comics, quote, over the next 6 months? Who are the 3 current artists you'd like to draw all the Marvel comics over the next 6 months? Are there still house styles? I think it shifts.
I don't think so. What I will say is this. My answer would be Dan Mora for DC and Pepe Larraz for Marvel, because I think Dan Mora is more of a DC style artist, and I think Pepe Larraz is more of a Marvel style artist. Now, I think either one of them could do the other company's work, and it would be great. But I think,
has Dan Mora done Marvel?
I don't think so. I think he went right from Boom to DC, but I think the style of art that they do encapsulates sort of the quote unquote house style, the traditional house style.
Here's
Pepe Larraz looks kind of Jim Lee-ish, and
I was going to say,
and Dan Mora is more of a cartoony style.
I would also go Dan Mora for DC. I'd go Marco Cicchetto for Marvel.
Really? I think that you're right. I think that if we're going to go with a Marvel style, it is still all descended from Jim Lee. That's sort of what they go for. That's the best thing.
When I look at Pepe Larraz, I think of the X-Men. Like, that's the style he draws in. I'm like, that looks like an X-Men artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
he recalls like a more evolved Jim Lee. But that's also, we're old, and house style. I don't think house styles exist anymore, but
I think that there are trends that go through for a little while, and so like there's a lot of DC books that look like these Spanish artists right now.
Marvel's house style is Italian.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever the Italians do.
Estilo de maison. I don't know. They're got to be close to those. The romantic languages.
Let's just jump to this third question.
Okay. For Ryan, who would you choose to draw a graphic novel adaptation of the biography of one key inventor or scientist from the 20th century? Note, you may choose multiple artists for various sections of the biography. You may choose one artist, Ryan.
That's
And pick the subject as well.
I mean, I would do Bill Quee Evely on the life of Charles Darwin. I think she would do an amazing Victorian era.
It's a great.
Would you just think that's a great answer?
I didn't have the script before. I mean,
I know, but
like Josh, if she did him on the Beagle, like sort of master and commander, but natural history and Darwin, like
I as soon as you saw it, I said I saw it. I was like, wow, that's just. You should get an editing job based on that.
Thank you.
By the way, you did just pitch a book that I think would be amazing, but no one would buy.
Well,
so
but I mean, I've seen like
yes.
I've seen, there have been people who've tried to do like graphic adaptations of like, scientific works. And they seem to just be like overly illustrated textbooks. There's a guy who has done some good graphic novels on the lives of scientists. Oh gosh, who's the bongo player? Richard Feynman. There was a Feynman graphic novel that came out.
I was going to say Matthew McConaughey. That's just, we live in different worlds.
I mean, yeah, but similar with the bongos. Ottaviani is the guy's last name. What's his first name? Jim Ottaviani has done a number of different graphic novels about science and scientists. And the best one, so he did one on the various women who have studied primates, Jane Goodall, and all that other stuff. He's done Stephen Hawking, he's done Einstein, and then oh gosh, what was there? There was one. He did a really great book with Xander Cannon on the Bone Wars, which was a period in paleontology's history with these two feuding paleontologists that literally like would dynamite each other's fossil sites, and it was going to get adapted into an HBO show with Steve Carell and
Stephen Colbert.
No, Sopranos.
Christopher Michael Pioli.
Tony.
The main guy in Sopranos.
Gandolfini.
It was something happened to your bones.
It was James Gandolfini, and then literally he died right before they were supposed to start production, so they never got a chance to.
All right, focus up.
That's
Ryan. Do 6.
I was just pitching a few cool.
No, you're great. You nailed it.
Yeah.
Walk off the stage as a winner.
Island.
It's not Pepe Larraz. I know that.
Island or Ilan P from South Africa. My question, which I've been thinking about, virtually since Stanley died for obvious reasons, is do you think that the backlash against him has gone too far the other way? It's become especially noticeable that since his passing, many critics have gone far beyond merely giving folks like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko their due, but have gone out of their way to nullify Stan Lee's creative importance, especially in the early years of Marvel's Silver Age. Even if we assume that he was never more than a dialogue writer, considering what made Marvel stand out from DC in the 60s was the relatability of their heroes, doesn't that make Stan's now dated but then groundbreaking dialogue every bit as central to their success as anything that Kirby or Ditko did? It's not for nothing, surely, that when Kirby and Ditko are almost indisputably greater creative geniuses than Stan Lee, it is their work with Stan that has endured the best, certainly in terms of actual stories rather than just concepts or character designs.
It's interesting. I mean, granted, we are in a very small bubble where we don't really engage with fucking comics Twitter or whatever that is, or Reddit, or we're not in those communities, so I don't know what people are saying. So I've not heard any of this, so I can't directly. I kind of stand by what Josh, you and I said on that review of the Stan Lee book.
Yeah,
still
and I think that
none of this would work without him, but he got too much credit. He took too much credit. But I wouldn't say he did nothing. We said that in the show. He was.
I also think, like, over time, it's like, have they gone too far? Well, they're going to the level that is actually based on the facts that we have now as best
and
as
also
possible.
The stuff that came out after.
The stuff that's come out, the information that exists, our better understanding of how creator rights work, and a sort of much more, Stan Lee kept himself an enigma. And so a lot of sort of how things work. And Jack Kirby was... I mean, think about that. The two people on the other side of it is Jack Kirby kind of sounded like a nutball by the end, like couldn't keep his story straight. And Steve Ditko is like, goodbye, society. So it's and then you have Stan Lee, who is an amazing communicator. And so I don't know that it's gone too far. I think that Stan Lee is very perplexing because he is a lot of amazing and wonderful things, and none of this happens without him, no doubt. None of it. Right. But also there are a lot of things that were not great about him. And apparently.
Yeah, I mean, he took all the credit That's no good. Giving him none of the credit, that's also no good. It exists in the middle, like we said on that Booksplode show. None of it happens without him. He did get too much credit. Although, I mean, the thing you have to look at though is yes, Kirby and Ditko's best work or most remembered work was with Stan, but Kirby also did the New Gods without Stan. And I'm sorry, nothing Stan did after that was good, even a little bit.
That's a good point.
Even a tiny bit. It was all really bad. And so he never did anything
Stripperella, not the outlier.
He never did anything like New Gods on his own.
It's funny because
Ditko went off and left society, but
it's really funny because you're right. Is that the statement there was that like Kirby and Ditko never did anything great after Stan? And I was like, I really think it's the other way. Like
it is the other way.
Lee needed those guys and John Romita, you know, because like he wasn't writing the stories. He was being given pages and putting stuff over them, and maybe there's some direction to it or whatever. But like, he wasn't doing the creating. He never did. That's the key. Like the thing that he's known for, he didn't do.
Right.
I also tend to think that, like, a little bit more generally, and I don't have much more to say on this than this comment, is that, like, you know, trying to find the ultimate truth behind all these stories and histories, you're never going to fully land on that perfect line down the middle. But, you know, you paddle your canoe a little bit to the left and you overcorrect, and then you paddle it back to the right. And so I think we're sort of in a slight overcorrection, and it'll eventually sort of drift back to the middle.
The source material is never going to support. You're never going to know. You can't. It's too much information. But it's as our man Robert Evans says: there's 3 sides to every story. Your side, my side, and the truth.
Right. We'll never know. The only person that knows is Larry Lieber, from what people tell me. All right.
And he doesn't like Stan.
So Bill S. from Kansas City, although I don't know which Kansas City, so I didn't put the state.
Either way, they're having ribs.
Connor threw down the gauntlet in episode 946 about the 5 favorite modern artists, but I was going to yes and his topic. Oh, he's a fucking improv guy. To modify it toward a topic I've been thinking about for a couple of years. My favorite artist is George Perez, and my favorite comic is Justice League of America 200. In that issue, there were 7 chapters with different Silver Age and Bronze Age artists beyond the George Perez portions. If you could put together an anniversary issue, theme, characters of your choice, what are the 3 to 5 current artists you'd include in this issue?
We're doing an all email show and we have a lot of time for it, and I'm so annoyed when they make me work.
So let's just do one together.
I mean, I'm not even like I shouldn't be. Is my point.
Let's do a Superman anniversary comic. Okay.
So wait,
Superman 1000.
Are the artists? This is all time.
No,
artists?
3 to 5 current artists. Who would you include in this
current
issue?
Artists
in this anniversary issue? Doc Shaner. I'm trying to think of like Dan Jurgens.
Modern. I was like, so what counts as modern? Is
that just current? Current is the word.
Current. Okay.
Current.
Oh yeah. Dan
Jurgens is alive.
Does he doesn't draw? He hasn't drawn in a long time.
He's not incapable.
We don't know that, but I'll allow it.
Assuming Dan Jurgens hasn't lost the ability to draw. Assuming there wasn't a horrible circular saw accident in his garage. I'm gonna say Dan Jurgens.
Wait, can I just give you go ahead, finish your thing, and I'm gonna give you a
Dan Jurgens
related thing.
Dan Jurgens and Doc Shaner. You guys can pick some. Who should draw Superman anniversary comic?
It's hard. I'm struggling and remembering important Superman artists over the past.
Frank Whiteley.
Yeah.
I mean, Tim. I'd love Tim Sale if we had Tim Sale around.
Well, you can't pick him. So I would say Whiteley is a great choice.
I mean, can I?
He might be the best choice.
Technically, Byrne's still around.
Gary Frank.
Gary Frank
I forget that Byrne is still around. Yes, you're right.
If he's around and he's drawn, you have him draw it. You have to.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a great point.
Is there a Chris Somney type person who did Superman?
I mean, recently, no, I don't.
I'm just trying to there's somebody like that. I would have. I mean, if Darwin was alive, I'd say Darwin. Like he'd be my top because he's drawn the best.
Yes, Superman. Of course. Just pick us one. We move on.
Alex Ross.
Yes, I mean.
All right, we've said a lot of names, so let's pick 3 between all the names we've said. Who are the top 3 that need to be on there? Byrne. I'm willing to knock out Jurgens and his bloody stump Burn. I think we need like a modern guy. Burns a legacy guy. We need like a guy who's working now. Is that Shaner? Is it? Oh, oops.
Oh, does that work on StreamYard?
Yeah, it works. I forgot about
I do that with Cal on FaceTime all the time.
We need to pick one. So we got Burn. We got, come on. Quietly.
I would go quietly, yeah.
And so someone modern, Josh. Someone super modern.
Otto Schmidt.
I mean,
Gary
that's
Frank.
not modern. But I would say it modern. I would go with him.
All right. Who just read that email? Did I?
Daniel Samper?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Josh, you go with number 8.
Gregory B. 1. What comic moment makes you tear up? For me, it's a little embarrassing. No need for that. But I tear up when I think about Peter Parker dying in Amazing Spider-Man 700. I don't remember that.
I don't either. Did he die?
700.
This one's easy for me.
All right, what is it?
Ampersand dying at the end of Why the Last Man. Cannot get through that issue without losing it at that moment.
I don't know if I can think of another one than that. I wouldn't have remembered that, but I do remember now that you said it. Absolutely.
And I've reread that series at least once, and it hit me the second time. I was no better. It was.
I'm really sorry. Like, I can tell you movies that do that, but I can't think of a lot of comics that do.
I can't either.
There's a moment. I think at the
Dead
end of Starman. I think there's something. I don't know if Ted dies or something happens at the end of Starman where I was really touched. It's probably a Preacher moment. Actually, there's
the
definitely
Preacher moment of you got to be one of the good guys. Son,
yeah, that doesn't make me tear up. That's I think there's a bit in. I'm trying to. There's something like Jesse finally tells off. I was gonna say Princess Cassidy at some point, and I think there's later when Cassidy sort of makes up for it and then sacrifices himself. I think that I'm getting a little prickle just thinking about it. So that's what I'm gonna go with.
I get choked up like in my chest but I don't think tears have ever flowed from comics. They fly at the drop of a hat in a movie or TV show. I will cry for anything and everybody. My level of empathy has gone up and up and up as I've gotten older, but not for comics for whatever reason. I don't know why. But I definitely feel it. Like I get like that physical reaction of emotion, but it doesn't result in water.
I've had it, not a lot, but it doesn't tend to stick with me. But those are great answers. That's a great answer from Ryan.
Second question.
How are you guys liking the Penguin TV show?
Am I the only one watching it?
I've watched the first one.
Oh, you did watch the first one. What did you think?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think
the best makeup I've ever seen.
It's amazing makeup. I the whole time I was like, is this Penguin? I was thinking that a lot.
Well, he's not the Penguin yet.
Yeah,
they call him the Penguin, but he's not the Penguin. He's still a low-level guy.
At one episode in, I haven't figured it out yet, basically, and I can't. I don't know what it is yet. In that, like, I was like, is this supposed to be fun? Because it's not really fun. It's kind of interesting. It's fascinating to watch Colin Farrell do that. Is this a prequel to the movie? Was he?
No. Literally, the end of the movie is the start of the show. The whole flood and everything that happened in the movie.
I didn't finish the movie.
Oh, yeah, but it's literally it happens like right after the end of the movie.
Okay.
I like it quite a bit. I think it's really well done.
I think obviously, like, it seems well done. I've shut off a lot of shows in the first episode, and I was like, I was interested.
I think he's amazing as a character. I thought he was amazing in the movie. I think the makeup is out of this world. You sort of forget he's even in there. Mm-hmm. And then Kristen Milotti, who I don't know if you've seen yet the first episode, she's in as daughter. She's really great. Good. She's
women never get to play a role like that, and it's really interesting.
She's the second hand of this story. I'm enjoying it. I think it's very good, but it's good. I'm not finished yet though.
Are you done? Is it over? Is it
no? I think there's 2 more.
Okay.
I'm excited to check it out. It's October. I'm not watching TV shows. I'm watching spooky movies.
Right. You watch spooky movies. Ryan, now you get 9.
Thomas C. from Newcastle upon Tyne, England, United Kingdom. Again, not doing
okay, that one right. Come do it.
What celebrities have you ever been told you look like, or who do each of you think you look like?
Didn't you used to get, what's his name?
Adam somebody?
No, the
guy from the play.
Guy from the play?
It was somebody who was in Rent, and everyone was like, you look like that guy. And I did.
Yeah, he's on Star Trek. Yeah, I can see that.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say one of the things I like doing is casting my friends in their own biopics, but my rule is the age of the person playing you can't be a factor. Like you just have to assume there's like perfect de-aging technology available. And Josh, I've always gone Bradley Whitford for you.
The hairline?
What?
I don't know. I feel like he's got your like the affect. I think he could play you well in a movie.
Way too anxious for me.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean. I was just like,
Okay.
I was like, what's he gonna say? It's not Rob Lowe.
It was West Wing though.
It's true.
Who's
I'm
the
much
guy
more
that,
Toby Ziegler than anyone.
Who's the
now.
guy on Terriers?
The
Irish
Cajun
guy.
guy,
The Irish guy.
the Irish guy,
Yeah, with the beard. Not
Donald
the Irish
Logue?
actor, Irish American actor.
Donald Logue.
Donald Logue.
We have the same birthday.
A little bit.
Oh.
You know who I would say right now?
I've already
And
cast
obviously-
Donald Logue as somebody else. So in my
So I'm watching. I was watching Spooks, and I was like, River Cartwright could play me right now. I'd be
That's,
happy with that.
that's Slow Horses.
What did I say? Spooks.
Yeah.
I've
You can
got
see why I
some,
made
similar-
that mistake at least.
the two most common ones I've gotten
That's
for
dumb.
me in my life are people often used to tell me I looked like Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day, and I get Rufus Sewell a fair bit. And he's always playing Nazis.
I'm
so
gonna take it another way. And again, this has nothing to do with age. I want Javier Bardem for you.
I see. My wife wants Ian McShane. She
Oh. That's
Well,
you
look
see,
at that.
you see young Ian McShane.
can see it.
Yeah. He was a smoke show.
So no
Still is.
one's gonna understand this who didn't know me in college when I was
It's fine.
190 pounds. Josh will know this. When I
Yeah.
was 190 pounds, had a full head of hair. I got Vince Vaughn all the time.
yes,
I
and,
got
and
it all.
justifiably. And I think
I'm 6'3". I weighed 190. I had shaved face. I had head of hair, big forehead. Swingers had just come out.
Mhm.
All the time. I had people come up to me at parties. You know, you look just like Vince Vaughn. I was just like, yeah, I know. All the time.
and then you got Vincent D'Onofrio. It's a different Vince.
And now, when I was a little younger, in my late 20s, I would get Timothy Oliphant when he had his head shaved in that movie,
Wow.
Oh, nice for a hitman.
Hitman, but also Vincent D'Onofrio. I was
Where
like,
I
put
pulled
on the
that from.
middle-aged pounds.
I could see like a Billy Zane for you, Connor.
Yeah. All right.
You're just choosing bald people.
Patrick Stewart. Wes A. from Fridley, Minnesota.
Michael
By the way,
Jordan.
I want to say we've been doing this a long time. We've been doing these anniversary shows a long time. I love seeing people who have been writing in
Right?
every time. I love
Yeah.
that we have people who've been with us 10, 15, 19 years. I love it.
And I
Wes A. from Fridley, Minnesota, he's been writing in for years. I love it.
I take it as a compliment to us, and I give it as a compliment to them that they are still thinking up interesting questions and they think that we have something to say on it.
I love
think
it.
That
That
that's
makes me
credit
feel
to
good.
everybody.
Wes A. has 3 quick questions. His first question: looking back, Marvel going into bankruptcy in the late '90s pushed the company to freshen up their books and bring in new creative voices, which led to so many great titles throughout the 2000s. Seeing as how the company is now owned by Disney, I don't see how this could ever happen again. At this point, how do you think the publisher could resist the urge to become stagnant or complacent?
I don't know that the publisher does. I think it's the Kirkman thing. The creators move on to indie books and go do interesting stuff there.
I believe the question is flawed in that I do not believe the publisher, meaning Disney, the parent company, is concerned about them being stagnant or complacent. I believe they are concerned with the moving of units only.
Mhm.
And maybe people who work in the organization care about those things, but ultimately choices will not be made
Well,
based on
they're
that.
an entirely different company now because
Yes. They're a
now they've
content
got to
company.
hit their quarterly number and they got to worry about that, as opposed to back then where it was like they were just a publisher and it was, well, what do we do? Burn it down and start over, basically. what they
Also,
did.
you could do something in comic book publishing back then and actually make a difference and boost your sales.
Yeah.
I don't believe you can do that anymore.
Yeah, it's
Well,
a
I
totally
mean,
different world. But
we-
they're gonna be what they are, but they have to hit their number, so that's the most important
Well, I
thing.
feel like I've seen this more in DC than in Marvel, but like DC is now putting out a ton of middle grade original graphic novels with people who are not doing monthly books.
DC?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been doing that for a while. Yeah. It's a
But I mean, I
smart
feel like
strategy.
that's a way, like that's how you resist becoming stagnant and complacent. That's a new market, a new niche, a new format. They're not the same size books that we're used to reading. They're not for us. I have not read any of them, but they seem to do really well in like the bookstore market.
It's a smart move. But they're both in the same position where they're both owned by giant media conglomerates and they're both at the folks in their quarter. now, and so
they have to be aligned with the larger,
right. They got brand teams, internal brand teams. Like Marvel Knights could never happen again. It could be an imprint, but it would never change the publishing. I don't think. Anyway, question 2. After reading Brubaker and Phillips' Criminal back in 2006, I really got into the crime noir comics. Eventually, this led me to reading crime novels and watching crime films. I'm loving all of them. Has reading a certain genre of comic led you to trying that genre outside the comics medium?
I don't think so for me, just because I've always been interested in most genres. Like I don't really.
Yes. The genre determines the medium. Like if I like westerns, I like westerns, so I'm going to gravitate towards those. Like I've liked war films or whatever, so I like war comics. I can't think of it another way.
I go in
guess
phases.
I wouldn't watch superhero movies.
Yeah,
if it hadn't been for superhero comics.
Right. I mean, I don't think there is. I don't think so, because I've always, as long as I've been reading comics, I've been watching movies and watching TV shows. So I've always been watching every genre, or it's not like there's not a genre I have discovered in comics that I haven't already seen as a film or a TV show.
I mean, I would say what comics lead me to tends to be like artists. You know what I mean? Like when I read a comic that's great, I don't think, oh man, I'd like to have another story like that. I think I'd like to see this person draw something else or what they do.
Yeah,
I think the one genre of comics I used to read more of that I don't see as much anymore is the slice of life books.
I don't see them in movies either.
Well, true.
Right.
I'm just looking at my shelf and thinking.
Well, certainly not from the bigger companies. That's certainly a genre that's quieter. And his final question.
I think a lot of that was the slice of life books that we were reading at the time when they were coming out had creators who were closer to us, and now slice of life books are done by people who are 20 years younger than us.
They got weird hair.
Therefore, they're less. They're less
relatable.
In the same way that our slice of life books, they probably wouldn't like. But I don't know.
Like kids these days, you can see their socks like all the time. Like they're never not.
Oh,
which is hilarious because that's how my dad dressed.
Yeah, it's
like
not cool.
They think they. I'm like, you hate boomers, but that's how boomers dressed their feet.
Yeah.
All right.
You brought back mustaches and our worst haircut.
What? His final question: what, if anything, do you miss about comic stores?
Ryan,
you don't go to a store, do you?
No, I don't. When I admit what I miss about comic book stores is from when I worked there, and when I worked at the comic book store, one of my jobs was stocking shelves on Tuesday night before the Wednesday morning rush. And one of my favorite things, this is not as a customer, but as an employee, my boss would basically let me like sit in the back room and read all. And once I got the shelving stocked, it would let me sit in the back room and read all the new books the night before, which was awesome. And then showing up to work Wednesday morning, literally the shop I worked at would have a line of guys, and yes, they were all guys, like waiting to get in first thing Wednesday morning. And this was sort of the era of like the death of Captain America with Brubaker and all that. So it was an exciting time to be like in a comic book shop when everyone was like, couldn't wait for the doors to open for them to grab their books and get reading. So that's something I miss.
I have an answer if you want to.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
I would say that it has a little to do with what the world used to be like more than this is that it used to be. I have really good memories of going into comic shops when I was younger, not like after I moved here. I really
as a kid or as an adult?
As a young adult and as a kid, like they were special places, and they're not anymore in the same way, because you used to go into a comic shop and you would see things that you couldn't see anywhere else. All of those cool toys and action figures and little PVC figures. This was the only place you saw that stuff. You could go to this place and finally feel like, oh, this is a place where that has things that I'm interested in, and there's other people who come in here are like me. And if you're at a good shop, the people who ran the shop were great. I know so many people who run comic shops, and they're just great people. And people who run comic shops may well still be, but all of the things that are in it aren't special to that location anymore because it's available everywhere. And it's like, you can go get G.I. Joe classified things at Walmart. Like all the stuff is everywhere. And so when it was smaller, it was more exciting and more intimate. And I miss that.
I also miss drawings on toilet lids.
I agree.
Specific
Josh,
to one
that's probably as a kid in the 80s, that was probably the most exciting thing about going to a comic store, was seeing things you couldn't really see anywhere outside. For me, the newsstand. Kind of the same feeling I would get when I would go to the suburbs and I'd see a Toys R Us and go inside there and it was just toys everywhere.
Yeah.
Which was something
Right.
someone in the city was shocked by. But I do miss flipping through a book on the shelf I wasn't sure about, which you really just can't do on digital, right? It's just like, oh,
I miss noticing covers.
So, I mean, I liked the culture and the friends I had at my last store in Brooklyn, but that store's long gone, and that was really the only shop I ever really had that at. So I don't know.
And again, I go back to my time as an employee at the shop, and like I also loved somebody coming into the store who wasn't like a weekly reader, wasn't a regular purchaser, and sort of like the genre question we just had, them sort of saying, well, I kind of like this stuff. What should I read? And I remember one time specifically, the person started telling me what they were into, and it was like the sort of melange of things they were telling me. Like I just zeroed in on like, oh, Brian K. Vaughan's Runaways, and like I pitched her the series and showed her a couple of the books, and like she bought all 6 volumes right there.
This was great about it. Yeah.
So excited about it.
Josh, you're 12.
James L. of Vermont, we've talked about him before. I first found your show through a Vision 3 video show and soon became a regular podcast listener. I've heard the broader iFanboy origin story dozens of times. But I don't think I've ever heard about how the video show started. Were you working on a show and learned that Revision 3 was trying to find shows, or did one of you have a connection to Revision 3? Ron? And they suggested you pitch them a show, or did someone from Revision 3 see the three of you? You ask a question, then you give us a bunch of answers. That's what I've noticed. I'm going to edit these going forward. See the three of you standing around your shorts one day and say, damn, we got to get them on a couch. It's funny, though. I was surprised to realize I don't know the answer to this question.
I'm trying to remember exactly how this happened. It was 2006.
It wasn't that well planned out. I had bought a video camera.
Well, that's how we made the pilot. That's not how we got the Revision 3 show.
Is that what he said?
He's asking how it does start with the pilot, however. Right. So you can tell that story.
So like basically like where it started was we were doing our podcast that some people not for long.
We were in it for a year. It was the second.
So we were full of our oats when we went to San Diego that in 2006, and I said I'll bring my camera, and we all sort of got into it, and got a microphone.
Well, we all studied television in college, so production. So you had a camera, we bought a microphone, we bought a mic cube with our logo on it. We said let's just shoot a video over there because why not?
Right. And there's no YouTube, there's no social media, there's no, we just thought that'll be fun. Let's do this as a thing, and it'll be like a special thing we'll put on our website.
It'll be like a fun treat. It won't be like, we weren't trying to do anything. We weren't setting out to do anything because those things didn't exist. Like you said, there's no YouTube. Revision 3 didn't exist at the time. It's just a fun thing we would do. And then, so this is where it gets murkier because it has been a long time. I know Revision 3 was launching. We knew about that. I know that Ron and I, on a whim, somehow got tickets to their launch party in San Francisco, and we both called that sick from our jobs and jumped on a plane, flew to San Francisco, bought clothes for a party, had a hotel room that we shared.
This is the Miata.
We rented a Miata. Went to the party, met everyone from Vision 3 at the party. Not just the people who made shows like Alex Albrecht and Jeff Connor, but the executives. And then I think through that conversation ended up pitching and saying, we have this pilot. You want to see it? And they said, sure. And they watched it and they bought it. And
it was competent and it fit in a niche they weren't covering, but that was adjacent to the ones they did.
Right.
And then
it was all just happenstance of hearing about this thing that was happening because it involved people that Ron and I had watched on tech TV. And so we and Ron has always been interested in the tech world. So he knew about this stuff. So we knew it was happening. We went on a whim, pitched it. And then because we already had it. We already had a pilot. So I
mean, like the thing is like the making of it was literally, let's do this for fun.
Yeah. The pilot was let's do it for fun. But the show itself came out of having that and then going to.
And then having to develop a thing.
And yes, someone asked, we got paid to do the video show. They paid us for every episode. It's just like any.
And they lost a lot of money.
They lost so much money. They paid us really well for the first couple of years. Then the next wave of shows came in and said, we'll do it for free, for exposure. And they said, well, if they're doing it for exposure, why are we paying you? Oh, those motherfuckers. All right. Ryan, do 13.
Juan M wants to know, what's your special secret steak marinade recipe? I can answer this in one word.
Salt and pepper.
Just salt.
I don't have marinades. I don't marinate. Just the salt and pepper.
Yeah,
I'll marinate if I'm gonna do like a carne asada. I
Mhm.
will marinate.
Yeah.
And I don't have
That's different.
a secret one. I just it's
Yeah.
usual.
What
If
is
I-
it? Just say what it is.
I couldn't tell. I don't make carne asada off. My wife is not a huge red meat person, so we don't tend to have a lot of red meat often in the house. So I don't. So occasionally, when I'm at the grocery store, if like the steak is on clearance and is going to go bad the next day, I'll snag one and just cook it for myself. And literally just salt it the night before, leave it in the fridge uncovered. If I can get it, if I have enough room in the fridge to put it on a resting rack so that there's airflow all around it, and just let it salt cure for 8, 12, 24 hours. Osmosis and dry brining is the way to go, I think.
I said the only other time I would do anything with it, and I've been eating a lot less beef. If I'm making stir fry and I have that little, I will, I'll soak it in soy sauce and then mix in some cornstarch and maybe a little sriracha or something in there, and then saute it quickly.
The best stir fried beef recipe I've discovered relatively recently is a Peruvian recipe called lomo saltado, and it's stir-fried beef and tomatoes and red onions and peppers, because it's like Peruvian. It's Peruvian Chinese. It's called chaufa food, and you serve it with rice and French fries, so you get double starch, and it's the best. Lomo saltado, everyone, check it out.
But if you're just doing a steak, just salt and pepper. You don't need anything.
I really have. I've stopped putting pepper on before I cook it because I cook it on a high enough heat that the pepper might burn. So I literally just do salt before cooking it, and I pepper it while it's resting.
I actually have a thing that there's a packet of stuff that's mojito lime, and I'll put like crappy steak tips in it sometimes and grill those. It's really good.
All right. Peter S. from Cape Coral, Florida. I've been wallowing alongside Conor in the current dearth of good Batman comics. Well, not now, Peter. Conor, let's remember the good times. Can you talk a little bit about the last best Batman run? When was it? What made it special? How can we get it back?
That's a great Batman run.
The last great Batman.
Is it Rucka?
I think so. I mean, I did really enjoy most of the Scott Snyder run, the New 52 one, and the Detective Comics run before that was terrific. But the last great era was the Rucka Brubaker era, where they were doing Detective and Batman and
Cataclysm.
Who was doing? And then you had Batgirl, you had Robin, you had Nightwing, you had Birds of Prey. Those were all great books.
I think Willingham was doing Robin.
He definitely was on at one point. Paul D. Neon Detective, people are saying in the chat, that was a great run. But that sort of era, that 2000s, was the last great era for Batman comics, I think.
There've been peaks. There's some of the stuff Tom King did really was good, but I wouldn't consider it a great run.
No, because it had problems. He would even say he was figuring it out.
No, he clearly wasn't. And also, like, I think we've seen what he's great at, and he did just fine with it, but that's not his strength. Yeah, I can't think of another one.
Yeah.
Batman.
But that was the last hit. I think the Rucka.
There's 3 issues of Batman and Robin. That's more
the first three. And I like the Morrison run a lot, but it
I don't think I did.
In retrospect, caused problems. I think the last great era when I think about late Batman comics was Rucka and Brubaker bringing a lot of indie sensibility and energy to it. It hit into both of their wheelhouses, which was crime and noir. I think of
the Rucka thing in terms of like a novel, like it was an ongoing.
And then they had the Gotham Central book in there where they both did together. Like that whole era was terrific.
I don't remember what Brubaker's story was, or his concept. I remember the detective one. It was a bunch of. There was things I remember from it, but
the Batman one was the Rucka did was Bruce Wayne murder, or he was accused of murdering.
Right.
There was really good Dini run on Detective that came after that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
That I was.
No, that's right. No, that whole era, that 2000s era.
The only thing that was different about that one, and the thing that is unique and wonderful about it, was that all the stories were one and dones.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So it's difficult to say like, oh, there was a continuity on the run. Like the way that I think of a run tends to be, like multiple stories to continue. But
I do remember Bruce Wayne Murderer. That was really good. And
Yeah.
the Dini run, I believe, was the one that introduced the idea that Batman and Zatanna had a relationship. And
that's because Paul Dini is obsessed with Zatanna.
He married one.
Not wrongly. How do you get it back? I don't know. I think maybe this Batman and Robin book is probably the closest you'll get to that kind of feeling again.
It could happen at any time. You could have a Ryan North, not Ryan North, but a Ryan North, show up on Batman, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, what's going on here?
Right. I'm just going to run through this next one just because I've already been looking at it. Morgan B writes, and he's got a couple questions. His first one, I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about the first question since Murmur.com unceremoniously disappeared overnight, however long ago that was. Probably
really a long time.
Question 1. On more than one occasion, Conor has made comments about a rebranding, complete overhaul of iFanboy that almost happened but didn't. I think he commented that it was right before you guys got bought by Graphically. I'm not sure about that part. That's true. Wasn't that around the same time as Murmur.com? Anyway, I bet the iFanbase would love to hear about this. Was Murmur the rebrand? The world would love to hear some inside baseball talk on this topic. Murmur was not the rebrand. And I kind of love not answering this question because they keep asking it.
It's what's in the closet. This is your Bendis closet.
I don't know why we don't say things, so I never don't.
I'm not saying just for no good reason. I think maybe I saved it for 1,000.
That's fair.
But it wasn't Murmur. Murmur was a separate entity. But there was another rebrand that we were going to do. It was going to be a magazine and a website. And then Graphically bought us, and so that went in the drawer.
And it was approved. Like it was going to be a magazine.
Right. We have a mock-up of it. We have the mock-up of the first issue using the website content. All the writers on the website were going to write for the magazine.
I still remember, for whatever reason, every once in a while I remember, and probably because I married a Swede, I still remember some Murmur article Gordon wrote about wondering whether or not he had outgrown IKEA.
What the thing about adult life is that you find out that it very frequently think maybe now I've outgrown IKEA, and then something comes up and you're like, IKEA seems to be the answer.
I was there last weekend.
Exactly.
I don't know what I was going to say. Oh, Murmur, we were developing because at the time, iFanboy was going nowhere. This was even before the podcast. So we were like, okay, let's try something else. And then the podcast took off, and Murmur just got left in the background, and then died. And then we got rid of it, and then we sold it. All right. His second question: who's your favorite Muppet? It better not be that shrimp guy they've been pushing for decades.
So first of all, before I got to the second sentence, my first thought was Pepe the Shrimp, because say what you will about it. No, Pepe the Shrimp is fucking hilarious. He's very funny. Okay, like he just is. I don't know. I mean, it's a terrible racist stereotype. So let's leave that out.
Hold on, Mike Romo, our former writer, sometime podcast host in the chat room, is saying he had no idea about the magazine. Yes, he did, but it's been a long time and a lot of drinks since then. I'll remind him after the show. Back to Pepe the Shrimp.
Oh, okay. So favorite Muppet.
I mean, look, remember
Muppet.
somebody asked us about the best Star Wars character. We were like, it's fucking Luke. It's fucking Kermit.
It's
Kermit. Like, it's an
so.
easy, dumb answer, but it's Kermit. If I could have a cool Kermit statue in my office, I would put one in there. He is the best.
What I immediately think is what makes me laugh, what makes me happy, and that would make me go Swedish Chef or possibly Beaker. Beaker is hilarious.
I love Beaker.
The guy in the big monster suit, fantastic.
Yep.
I mean, Kermit's like Superman. So
he's the best Muppet.
I've always had a soft spot for
this is my Kermit team up.
Fozzie. I was going to say Fozzie would be
Fozzie's
I often quote, a bear in his natural habitat, a Studebaker.
Like Fozzie just wants to be funny and he wants people to approve of him, but he's not quite good enough.
Mm-hmm.
He's a vaudeville comedian.
That?
I mean,
he's not very good.
As you can all tell by the way Josh treats me, I can relate.
So I was thinking I was Fozzie.
Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, that whole band is fantastic. Like the Muppets are just
Gonzo, who
the
has
Muppets are amazing.
With a chicken.
He's in love with a chicken.
Yeah, I mean,
Nikolai Tesla was in love with a pigeon. Happens.
Are we gonna ignore Janice?
Are we
gonna ignore Animal?
They're all in Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, which I just said.
Yeah. So I told this story back when they came out, but
I'm not partial to Zoot.
When that Jason Segel Muppet movie came out, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I went to see it. Josh and I are the age where we grew up with the Muppets, and so I went to see the movie. I remember it was a theater in Oakland, and
That's weird.
well, just that's where it was. I just remember the theater. It was just right next to the lake. I don't remember the name of the theater, but packed theater, sold out, and the movie goes, and then the first time Kermit sings Rainbow Connection,
Mhm.
I didn't start crying. I started bawling.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it just happened like this. I just started weeping because all of a sudden I felt like I was 3 watching the Muppet Show or whatever. And I had that intense feeling of it's not nostalgia so much as it is age or I don't know, but it was just like I literally had to sit like this because I'm with my girlfriend and her friends, and I'm weeping.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be like, we weren't dating that long. I want to be like, why is this guy weeping? Because I was just like hiding my face because that's how strong the connection is. Even if I don't watch them all the time, it's that it's that 3 or 4 year old Connor sitting on the floor watching them on TV, and it was one of the most intense moments I've had in a long time.
So somebody mentioned in the chat Statler and Waldorf. I just want to point that out because they're fantastic, and I think I just recast both of you in the biopic. You think it's bad for us? What about the audience? And also, Connor, I have the same sort of emotional connection to that song. My dad, whenever I was in the car with my dad growing up, all the tapes that he had, the only one that he had that was like kid appropriate or kid friendly was the Muppet movie soundtrack. So I listened to that every time I was with my dad. And my Dance with My Mom at my wedding, we did a cover of Rainbow Connection. It wasn't the Kermit version.
Did you literally have that cup there with liquid? Were you drinking from that cup actively prior to this question?
No.
Oh, okay.
I've got a good producer. Yeah. So
I'm sorry, I know that we're on, but
we're gonna move on. Yeah.
If someone says to you, "The Muppets," what comes into your head? Like, what do you picture? Like, what's your first
the original Muppet movie, the first one?
I think of Kermit on the log with the.
Yep.
I think because I think of the Muppets Take Manhattan. That was when which I feel like when I say was late, but really it was like the early mid '80s. But like all of my first times where they sort of made me laugh was from that for some reason.
You believe there was a guy in a tank below the waterline controlling girl? It's also a technical accomplishment too.
Yes.
It's cool filmmaking.
I will say in the new Saturday Night movie, Jim Henson is very funny. The character.
It's played by Cousin Greg, right?
Cousin Greg plays both Jim Henson and he plays.
But the frog is the frog the.
Who's the other guy?
Frank Oz.
No, he plays. Lip syncing to Mighty Mouse.
Andy Kaufman.
He plays Andy Kaufman and he plays Jim Henson.
Oh wow!
Really?
Yeah. It's funny,
but he's so tall.
His height becomes an issue with the Andy Kaufman part. Morgan's we're skipping one of his questions just for time. His last question, Josh, have you showed your kids the Aquabat Super Show? It's amazing.
No idea what that is.
Okay, that's what I thought the answer was. Okay, Ryan, do
that was a band, wasn't it? The Aquabats.
I don't know.
It was like a ska band. I don't know, but
17, Ryan, 17.
Corey T from Cleveland, Ohio. An accent I can do. Watch me do it. With the end of the DC animated movies, what are some adaptations they never got to making would you like to have seen? Mine are Kingdom Come, Superman for All Seasons, Justice League International, Identity Crisis, and Green Arrow, The Archer's Quest. But I know there are so many to pick from, it's hard to choose. I've been thinking about this question for 15 years.
Ryan, pick one.
Having not gotten this question in advance, I might need a second to think. Because they did the one that I'd been saying for years, which was Superman Red Sun. That was the one I always said I wanted an adaptation of, and I finally got it. So let me think for a second. Maybe Tower of Babel.
That's a good one. So in 2010, I wrote an article for iFanboy, the top 10 DC Universe animated original films I wanted to see. 10 is Judas Contract. They did Judas Contract. 9 is Hard Traveling Heroes. 8 was Superman, the Legion of Superheroes. 7 was Batman Reborn. 6 was Cosmic Odyssey. 5 was The Next Age of Justice Society. The first.
Have all these been done?
No.
So these are none except for
Judas Contract. They did do Judas Contract, and they did do What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, the American Way.
Yep, they did.
75. But from my list, if I could pick one, I would pick Rogue War from the Flash 220 to 225, which is a Wally West story that features Barry Allen returning from the Speed Force and Jay Garrick and the Rogues, and like it's a quintessential Flash story. They never really did that.
I think Justice League International would be a lot of fun. It
might be hard to do, but it would be fun. They would muck it up. It was a good run, but we don't know for sure it's over. But anyway, let's do actually Josh, do 18. His first question for sure.
Robert. Oh man, he told us how to say this, and now I'm Dacula, Georgia, or is it not like Dracula?
Dracula, right?
Yeah, I think it was not like Dracula.
But I like Dracula better. It's Dracula.
Yeah, you're right. That's what it was. So it was like, hey, take those ribs, put them into cooler. One, I just finished long runs on Daredevil, Chip Zdarsky, and Immortal Hulk, Al Ewing. Did that ever end?
Yeah,
both had
some
unexpected religious endings. No spoilers. I didn't think I liked either ending, despite enjoying the majority of the runs. Do you like appearances of God, heaven, hell, etc. in standard superhero comics? It's a good question.
It is a good question.
It's
I think it's contextual.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, if you think about it, it is strange in a world where you've got like Thor flying around that they would also believe in one God. People would believe in one God, but you've got the Spectre on the DC side, who is the hand of God, the vengeance hand of God.
Is that rooted in anything biblical?
It's rooted in the Christian God.
No.
I know, but like that there's nothing that's sort of.
Oh no, you mean there's no Spectre in the Bible? No.
I know there's not a Spectre.
The Flash is in the Bible, and so is Alan Scott, but not the Spectre.
That's not what I meant, you piece of shit.
The part where religion in comics has always kind of, at least in mainstream superhero comics, like in terms of a comic that deals with religion, Craig Thompson's Blankets was transformative for me as a story. And I read it at a time where I still was grappling with how I felt about all that. But the one character who's always stood out to me is the Mr. Terrific, Michael Holt, Mr. Terrific, because he's an out-and-out atheist in a world where but he's a scientist. So he's an out-and-out atheist in a world where there is evidence that is the wrong take. But it's partly coming, however much a person is logical, humans still tend to make emotions based on their feelings rather than logic, even if they are a very logical person. And his wife was killed on her way to church, and so he's just like, fuck it, God sucks and I don't believe in him. And I'm just like, I get that as a character, and I find it fascinating in the context of dealing with Spectre. And
but is there a single supreme being creator in DC, or is it just that there's this pantheon of people?
And that's why it doesn't, I mean,
yeah,
there's both. There's also a devil. There's like 4 devils. There's Neron, and just
I like the devil. Take that out of context. I like the different versions of the devil in the comic books. Like I think it works particularly well in Marvel when there's Mephisto, and like he works in that way. God.
Remember Zoriel and Morrison's run? They were angels from heaven.
Yeah, I don't love that. So he'd mentioned Immortal Hulk and Daredevil. I dropped off Immortal Hulk. I like that the stories about, I think it's appropriate and often well done that Matt's stories focus on his Catholicism and his faith.
I gotta dial it back.
Which isn't the same thing as God. So if you're talking about his personality, but then you're bringing in the literal God to the story, I don't think that works great. Mm-hmm. Like it's the representation of all that and how it works with who he is and how he acts. I think that's interesting. I think that there are stories where Preacher, my favorite comic book is Preacher. It's literally about God.
Yeah, but that's not a superhero book.
I know that. So, but in the superhero context, no, like I don't like it. I think it rarely works.
It's also like there was some book recently where it was a flashback and to like younger Batman with Zatanna, and he was like, "I don't believe in demons." It's like, come on, like doesn't make any sense in this world. So stuff like that. It's always. I think it's. I don't know.
And I think there's an issue of Fantastic Four where they go to heaven and they meet God and it's Jack Kirby, and like that I like that to me is like a fun play on that concept, but it's obviously not taking it from a religious perspective. It's meta.
It's a messy subject. It doesn't mean it's a bad subject. I like the Spectre a lot. I think Zoriel was interesting, but
it's just I think it's interesting because like the role that religion plays in our society, it has a very large role. Most people are religious, and so the fact that like that's something that doesn't quite work in a world full of superheroes, especially a world that's like very fleshed out. Like we've got decades of these stories, and it's unclear how that piece of our actual society fits into it. That's interesting to me. I don't think there's a super clean or clear answer. But
plus, you've got literally every kind of god that showed up at one point or another in a Marvel comic,
including the new gods, like completely made up gods. You know, a dark side and Orion.
I really do like if you think about like Hellblazer. I think Hellblazer. Kind of a superhero comic, but like that does it really well. That there's all this, like the stuff that's going on in there is the background. He'll meet an angel occasionally, but like, you know, it's the idea that there's all this machination that's happening behind the scenes, above and below, and I think that that's done really well in a way that isn't really taking it seriously. It's kind of accepting that like the Judeo-Christian stuff is part of what makes up the world. But it's not. Yeah, and it also just because it's Constantine, like he's not taking it very seriously, so it's a little,
Well, and I mean, it's not.
Last point.
Okay, yeah, it's not directly in the DC universe, but I thought Sandman, Neil Gaiman's obviously played with those themes a lot, and I think he's got a lot of really clever ideas.
He's into gods,
work, and American and otherwise, and that infamous or famous volume of Sandman where the different rulers of the hells of the earth have to negotiate the surrender of Lucifer's kingdom to the rest of the underworlds. Like that stuff is fascinating, but that's directly what the story is, and it's not trying to reckon that with Superman and all that. So
all right, so we got to move on. So we are jumping ahead to everyone's favorite subject. It is Chris from the iFanboy Data Analytics Department has come in with his latest report for 2023, 2024. He says, "Dear Mr. Flanagan, Mr. Kilpatrick, Mr. Haupt, Dr. Haupt, greetings from the 7th floor of iFanboy Towers and congratulations on your another year of terrific shows. The iFanboy Data Analytics Department is both delighted and contractually obligated to share with you the 2023-2024 Patron Powers Report. Please see attached," which is what you see on your screen if you're watching. "This year, we're also pleased to share with you a special report, quote, just how dumb is that dumb superpower? Carol from HR has already indulged in several after-party tiki cocktails in the staff room and has started singing the inappropriate song about Spider-Man again. So rather than clear up the webbing off the floor, I'm going to throw a couple of shovelfuls of coal into the iPad's furnace. Best wishes, Chris L." Here is the yearly report from the Data Analytics Department. Let's get into this report. So, Patron Powers. There's a bar graph.
Jesus.
Patron Powers. These figures.
Remember, this is a medical professional.
This is a
I don't love a 3D bar graph. I'm sorry, I gotta say it.
At least let's go with the effort though, the presentation.
These figures relate to iFanboy shows released 15 October 2023 to 13 October 2024. This is year 8 of the Patron Powers program. This year, the program remained at 1 power bestowed per show, which has been in place since episode 841. Total number of powers bestowed in this year, 50. This compares to 52 the previous report. Josh did 20 compared to 18. Conor did 18 compared to 18. Guest Ryan Haupt did 11 compared to 13. And guest Jim Viscardi did 1 compared to 1.
It's crazy because I feel like I haven't done it I feel like I never do it.
Well, you've done it 20 times.
I understand that.
Total all-time powers bestowed, episodes 550 through 949. 1,125 powers bestowed.
Holy shit.
Josh 472, Conor 464, Josh Conor together, a co-creation 1, Ron 81, Ryan Haupt 78, Jim Viscardi 13, Paul Montgomery 8, Jim Rachkowski 3, and eccentric benefactor Damian Sherman 2.
Got 2 back then?
The note is for the joint power. In previous years, you were unable to recall the Josh Conor co-created power. This was episode 704. He went back and found it. This was episode 704 when bestowing a power on Matthew Glenn, Conor forgot the power he had been planning to give out. And when Josh stepped in with a suggestion that Matthew's power is that he can remind people of what things they've forgotten, this was a co-created power. Co-created powers forged. So he's got a bar graph here showing the total number of powers. He's basically the previous stats as a bar graph. As he says, as can be seen in the figure above, at the time of this report, Ryan is very close to passing Ron into bronze position as bestower of power. So, Ryan, you only got to give out 3 more powers to become the third
I mean, when it comes to Ron, my only hope is quantity over quality because Ron has a gift.
He does. Superhero names. There was an increase in bestowing of superhero names at the same time as a power, with 11 patrons receiving names as well as a power in 2022-2023. This represents 22% of those receiving a bestowed power in the last year. This compares to 7 names in 2020. I think he didn't change these dates. 2022-23, which was 13%. In the 2023-2024, Ryan and Conor both gave out 4 superhero names, and Josh gave out 3 names bestowed this year. Ryan gave out the Adhesive, Octopus Skin Man, Retro Cannon, and Earthworm Joe. Josh gave out the Nicknamer, the Alarm Raiser, and Early Adopter. Conor was the Human Stock Ticker, the Human Prism, the Human Disco Ball, and the Vine Man. I love the word human, I guess, in those words. In addition, whilst Matt, episode 903, didn't get a superhero name, Conor and Josh did write up a movie treatment for his origin story and cast Tom Hanks in the leading role, so that's not nothing. That's true. That is not nothing.
I'm so proud of the Alarm Raiser. I cannot tell you. That was my full note. I just wrote Alarm Raiser and then just winged it.
Power types. With fewer powers bestowed, it's harder to spot trends, but the following power types all had 2 examples in the last year. Food-based powers. 907, Mike Cartwright has a complete control over the degree of freezing of all ice cream, but does not work on frozen yogurt because, quote, that's not ice cream, Josh. Powered by Conor. And 920, Joseph Israeli never has. This is like the smallest possible font you can use, Chris. Nothing smaller than this. I had to make
it really big, and I still can't read it.
Episode 920, Joseph Israel never has a can of soda explode on him, even if he drops it. Works on any kind of carbonated drink in any kind of sealed vessel. That's from Jim Viscardi.
That's good.
Light-based powers in episode 923, Alvin Alvarez can turn into a prism person, powered by Conor. In 934, Eric can cover his body in tiny mirror tiles. His college friends stuck him to the ceiling and showed lights off his butt, powered by Conor. Body transformative powers. In 924, Jeff Shea can disguise himself by transforming into any processed food packaging. Jeff retains full sensory awareness and sentience when he's in the form of, say, a Twinkie. However, eating Jeff would be the end of him, so he had to try to disguise himself as an unappetizing food. That's powered by Josh. 927, Pachyderm. James Siri, when he's within visual range of a costumed animal mascot, he adopts the nature of that animal. This is involuntary change lasting for 8 hours. Powered by Josh.
I'm so proud hearing these things because I don't know how they were conceived.
Clothing transformation powers. 932, Sheldon Antley can give anyone squeaky clown feet just by pointing at them. The shoes transform into huge, garbly colored patterned shoes that squeak when the victim walks. Powered by Josh. This is the font is so tiny. And also I'm starting to cry from laughing. 939, Luke Henry can zap anyone's clothing and change them into a version of their outfit from a different era. Powered by Conor. Only one category for 3 powers bestowed. Vehicle-based power, 930. Danro can surf any vehicle on a roof. That's like Styles. 941.
That was Connor's.
David Caswell, when driving, David's car horn comes out as a voice to communicate the reason why he's honking. That's me.
Fantastic.
943, Daniel Sullivan. These are all D names. Batman, like Daniel, has an entire library of every vehicle that he can use to fight crime. Although the vehicles are rather old and cantankerous, he maintains them and soups them up through his master mechanic skills. That's Josh.
I remember that one. That was a good one, Josh.
This is a special report. Just how dumb are these dumb superpowers? Since the launch of the Patron Powers program, the offer to $5 or higher patrons has been to bestow them a dumb superpower, but this periodically comes with the caveat that the power may be something other than dumb. Sometimes it's something awesome. Sometimes it's a curse. The patron, and more often than not the bestower, never knows what the power is about to be granted and what the consequences would be. After over 1,100 powers bestowed, the data analytics department feels that we could now add some data-driven context to the uncertainty. Wow, Chris, good job. Yes, we've been thinking about this since the start of the Patron Powers program in 2016.
We've been doing this for 8 years.
Ever since starting to compile the Patron Powers spreadsheet, our data analysts have been subjectively assigning every power bestowed on one of the 6 categories: dumb, awesome, blessing, curse, practical, or weird. And that is true. I've seen the spreadsheet. He does have that category. Some powers can be a hybrid between those categories. For the first time, we analyzed the frequency of each power subtype to determine the probability of power being assigned to the dumb category. Summary: chance of being bestowed a power with at least some degree of dumb is 28%, 314 out of 1,125.
That's low. We got to get that average up, boys.
However, chance of being bestowed a power with at least some degree of practical, 29%. These stats are close. 29%. Chance of weird, 26%. Chance of blessing, 25%. Chance of curse, 10%. And chance of awesome, 5%. That's a good.
That's
I
good.
do like that breakdown. That's
You don't want too many people with awesome powers. You want that to be special.
I mean, it's Xavier's school for gifted youngsters, right? You need.
I would like to see which ones count as awesome.
So
Does Tarkin on your shoulder count?
does growing feathers instead of hair.
All right, his final analysis commentary. Assigning powers a category in this way can only ever be entirely subjective. Where does dumb and weird begin? This feels like a philosophical conundrum that falls outside of the remit and funding of the department. He's asking for a raise in the budget again. He asks this every year, and every year he's told, deal with it. Additionally, one person's curse could be another person's awesome. The analytics department references episode 657.
That's the funniest thing that you've ever said.
When Corey Goodwin was granted the power of being only able to communicate via drum solo. This was initially given the contribution of weird curse. However, in the following episode, another listener contacted the show to explain that he would value that particular power as a really awesome way to communicate with his autistic son. These limitations aside, we hope that this data sheds some light on the nature of bestowed powers in the last 8 years and adds some weight to the disclaimer of they're not always dumb. Conclusions. Number one, patrons are almost always equally likely to get a power that is dumb, practical, weird, or blessing. And two, the Jamokes are statistically twice as likely to give you a curse as something awesome. So that is the report. That's the yearly patron report.
Can we make that public?
Probably.
Post that because it feels like it's so good. That
I mean, like now that I work in the nonprofit world, the nonprofits usually have to provide like an annual report to donors and stuff like that. So I think an iFanboy annual report
it should be sent directly to the patrons.
They're the investors. They're the
we can probably put that up on Patreon.com. So this is a great timing because that means every week one of us gives a patron who supported us at $5 or higher level of superpower live on the show. Those people are patreon.com/iFanboy. We give them a dumb superpower, and this week, to thank the patrons, Josh has that special.
Okay, so I am giving one power to Michael and Eric.
You do whatever you need.
Well, it's fine. Michael and Eric.
They came on as one unit.
Huh?
So this is be like the Wonder Twins.
Well, Michael and Eric, of course, famously 40% of Monty Python. So they each have the ability. They can age up a baby.
Oh,
let's say 2 and under, for up to 5 minutes at any age that you want, but they can only do it once. So you can say, I would like to talk to my baby at age 40, and you get 5 minutes.
Once in their lives?
They can do it to each baby one time.
Does the baby remember?
Remember. Remember.
No.
Will they remember when they hit 40? Will they have a moment where they flash back to being 2 and getting...
Sure. Yes. Yeah, that'll be fine, but they have no context for it until it happens.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bittersweet power, really.
I don't know. I think it would be kind of amazing. Or, I mean, you have to... So, like,
Stop complaining.
Say that you want to give them, like, wisdom. If you do it too late, it's too late. If you do it too early, they won't be able to use or appreciate it.
Right.
So
but I think that's partly what makes it bittersweet is because you might give them a piece of wisdom that if some folks know that my grandmother just passed away, and like I made a comment at her
condolences, right?
Memorial service that like, hey, like how lucky was my grandma that like her grandson has this much gray hair by the time she passed, right? Like
Right.
so that was sort of my joking way of saying like what a life. And so like the bittersweetness to me comes from the idea that like you might give them this really important lesson or piece of advice or have a 5-minute conversation with them that's really meaningful that you'll never then get to see them come to know it. Potentially, depending on what age.
If you knew when you were gonna die,
all right.
I know when you're gonna die. I don't know when I'm.
We must move on. This is a good power. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for being patrons, Michael and Eric. You can age up random babies for how long?
5 minutes. You only get 5 minutes
to the age of their choosing.
Yeah. Will you just shut up and let me get through this? God damn it.
So Michael and Eric were patrons. They went to patreon.com/iFanboy. They directly support the show. They unlocked shows that everyone gets to listen to and become part of a great community on Discord and Facebook. They're thriving. Josh and I hang out on the Discord server. It's a lot of fun. And they also get to have a monthly patron hangout where we come on and much like this live show, we get to talk with nonsense for an hour. Me and Josh and our original co-host Ron. And sometimes we do an early show, a sort of pre-show hangout with Ryan and Mike Romo and Hank the Wangro and Ron, sometimes Gordon the intern. It's a fun time. We try to make it fun for the patrons. Patreon.com/iFanboy. It's the primary way to support the show. We do thank you for doing so. We also have iFanboy.threadless.com as our t-shirt store. Well, it's our merch store, but primarily it's people buy t-shirts. We have 13 designs. We just actually had a conversation this past week about some new designs we were excited about. So conversations are actually happening for more designs, but you can find them all there, not just the t-shirts, but other things. And Threadless has sales periodically. Right now they're having one. So Threadless is extending its current sale. There's been a sale going on the iFanboy merch, giving you extra time to grab $13.95 t-shirts and save up to 35% on everything else in the store. If you missed it earlier or need a second look, now's your chance to dive back in. Sale ends Monday, October 21st. So this show comes out on the 20th. You've got one day beyond the show coming out for the sales extension. There'll be another one in the holidays. This is always having sales. iFanboy.com/support is our direct donation PayPal tip jar for all of you eccentric billionaires out there who feel like they have too much money and want to do something stupid with it. Give it to us. That's the stupidest thing you could possibly do.
We are not a nonprofit 501.
No. iFanboy.com/Amazon is our general shopping area. If you want to shop via Amazon, it helps us out. We thank you very much. And also, you can find links to our Booksload books there. And finally, bookshop.org is our partner for booksellers nationwide, independent booksellers. When you order with them, a local independent bookstore fulfills your order. And we have those links on the website where appropriate. We thank you very much for all of your support on this 950th episode. We would not be here doing this for 19 years without you. We thank you very much. Ryan, do 21.
Ian S. asks, 1. I don't like where this question's going already, Connor.
Just get to it. We'll see.
In the last Animation Brain Trust, where you reviewed The Watchmen Part 1, the following interaction happened. Connor, so we watched Watchmen, ... Josh, oh, we do. We just solved it. This was a great joke by Josh, and I don't think it got the credit it deserved. So my question is, why are you trying to undermine Josh's comedic talent? Is it because you're threatened by it? Do the episodes go too long when he's encouraged to riff? Could we take a moment to go back and appreciate the moment for what it was worth? It's at around 35:30 in the episode. I've been thinking about this since I listened to that portion of the podcast on Sunday morning and for several years, respectively.
Josh, did you write this?
I'd just like to hear your comments.
Yeah, you were in our house, dude. The Animation Brain Trust.
Listen, the amount of things that I put out is like when I got my ADHD diagnosis, I went, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's very difficult to keep up with all the asides and things that come out. You should see the number of uncommented observations in our Slack channel. It is extensive. And
you got really mad about one where we didn't comment on. It was funny, but like I was also doing other things, and so
put a thumb on it.
I
think also that my sense of humor does not necessarily always work with the people who are listening. So when you're out there and you listen to something and I say something that makes you laugh, it's probably just you and 3 other guys because the people who are on there are like, whatever, dude. And like, that's fine. But I appreciate what you're saying.
Assuming this isn't from you, Josh, assuming this email is not from you. Sometimes jokes are made for the listeners.
Yes. So
that was a funny joke that Josh made. I remember it. But we don't always have to can stop and laugh at all the jokes. Sometimes it's just so for you. We're making the show for the listeners for the listeners' enjoyment. So sometimes the jokes are for them, and I let that hang for them to laugh at home. It doesn't
do that consciously.
No, we've been doing it for 19 years. So
I get it. That's fine. I love, by the way, when I say something that doesn't go right, and then somebody tells me that they like the idea that somebody is listening to something that I said that no one reacted to and they guffawed or whatever. It's nothing in the world that makes me happier. That's just the best thing. So thank you.
It's tough because you want to. It's like sometimes people say like, "Why didn't you respond to that point they made?" Because sometimes you have to pick and choose which times to stop the conversation and which times to keep moving. And Josh says lots of funny things, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to let the audience react to it, and you have to keep going.
It's funny when you've been doing a podcast for as long as we have. This happens sometimes, like when I'm listening to a show, or even when I'm editing a show. There are times where you're thinking about like, what's my contribution, what's my response to Josh, and so you're not responding to the other speaker in the moment, but because you're crafting your response and you're keeping the show going, because you can't have dead air. And I'll listen to it in the edit, or I'll listen to it even after release, and I'll be thinking to myself, like, Ryan, like, why aren't you responding to this thing Conor is saying? And then eventually I do. Like, my own self in the past says the thing that I thought I needed to say. And it's funny how, like, your brain, I feel like the neurons, and Josh, I think you and I are similar in this, where it's like sometimes our thoughts are plinko, where it's just like, it's just bouncing, and the randomness of it, we don't know quite where it's going to land, but it somehow finds the same path when we listen to the same.
You have ADHD too?
I would not be surprised if a diagnosis was possible for me, but I've avoided that for various reasons that I will get into with my therapist. And if you would like to join that conversation, Conor,
I would love to join and be like, this is what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with two of them.
Hi, so I brought a third.
My entire house. Like, right. It's the neurodivergent circus over here.
The point is this: Josh is very funny, and we recognize it, but sometimes you have to let the funny hang for the audience and not necessarily always respond to it. But that was a good joke, and I remember it.
Ian has the second question. Yeah. Also, what hurts?
I'm still dealing with my shoulder for like almost the last year. It's better, but it's not gone at all.
I was literally at physical therapy this morning for my wrist.
I've had a good couple of weeks where nothing has been. There was something in our house that was like leaned up against the wall that was very, very tall, and I bumped it walking past it. I fell and it hit me in the tooth, like right here. So that tooth was hurting for a little bit, and I had a bruise on my lip, but it's covered up by the mustache. Other than that, I'm doing okay. I'm lucky. Okay. I'm on an upswing.
I'm now going to tell you something that is embarrassing, and I don't know. I know I put it in the thing. A month or two ago, I have a method of cooking ribs. You put them in for 30 minutes, you rotate them. I'll set a timer. The timer, I either didn't set it. I think I didn't. I think I forgot to set it for one of them, and I remembered, like, oh shit, it's been like an hour or more. And so I jumped up from my desk here to run downstairs. In doing so, I spilled a drink all over myself. And I still was like, no, the ribs. And I ran downstairs. And I slipped on one of the stairs and then jumped up. As I jumped up, I hit my head on the overhead part at the bottom, and I fell like flat on my back. Hurt like hell. I yelled, fuck, like that. And Lindsay upstairs, who's working, just goes, what is it? And I was so angry that I was like, nothing. Just because I was angry at myself and embarrassed. And it was the most ridiculous thing. And later I tell my kids about it, and he looks up and there's a dent where my forehead hits in the landing.
Hilarious.
It's still there.
I
scraped my arm up really badly.
I have anticipatory pain, Josh, because I don't know if this if you experience this as well, but I find that the first day of ski season, my quads in particular, I might as well just light them on fire.
I told my son that last year I was sick. Like, I had COVID and I had RSV, and I was sick for like months at the beginning of ski season, and it was not a good ski season for many reasons. But I told him this year, I was like, I'm going to go to the gym for a couple of months before ski season. He said, you better. So I've started doing that for that reason. But yeah. My knees have started hurting because the temperature is going up and down so much, though. That's the thing that's happening.
All right.
Josh, 25.
Whoa.
Mark N, as in Namor.
Sure.
You've all been clear that you'll never go back to cons again, which is a shame for those of us who missed out on all your parties. But if you did, and if money was no object, which current artist would you commission a sketch from, and who or what would it be of? Even if you just taped a hangout of the con, it would be awesome. Have we ever said we'd never go to cons?
I think you said you wouldn't going to go to cons anymore. I never said that, certainly.
I don't think I've made that declaration.
I don't think you what I said. Like, never. You said you didn't really want to go anymore.
Like, I'm not. What I think is, like, I'm not going to go out of my way to go. Like, I'm not going to make a whole vacation out of it. That's not what I would do. I think that's kind of what I meant. I'm not against going to a con.
Yeah, I mean, I was at Comic Con as recently as 2018.
I was at the Boston. I went to the Manchester one last year. Those are getting pretty good.
I mean, I went from 2000 to 2001 through 2018. I think I only missed 2 years in that time. So like 16 years out of 18 years.
The con in DC is awesome con, and it always falls on a weekend where I've got something else going on that supersedes it. And I've been to the Baltimore Comic Con once, which was fine. It was a good time. But yeah, I'm not against going to cons anymore. It's just it's not as important a part of the lifestyle as it used to be.
Yeah, we don't do iFanboy like we used to, where it was for like 5 years it was our full-time job. So part of going to con was part of the job, was part of that. But since we don't do all the stuff we used to do, we just do the show. It's sort of hard to justify the expense of going all the way out there. It's not to say we wouldn't, but those are great times. But let's answer the question: who would you get a sketch from if money was no object? It's funny because
if money was no object, is kind of changes the math. But
I think back to those times I mentioned earlier where we would just hang out at
Alex Ross painting.
We used to hang out.
That's not a bad choice.
We used to hang out in the artist alley and like talk to the guys we knew, and we would hang out and talk to like Jeff. What's his name? Why can't I think of names?
Mir?
No, Jeff.
Johns?
No. Josh. Jeff, your friend, the writer.
I'm sorry. I need you to give me. I lost.
With the beard and glasses, Jeff.
What did he write? What did he do?
That's right.
Parker?
Anyway, he used to Jeff Parker. He used to
Parker.
I got it.
He used to.
He's been out of my mind for so long.
He was like Gabe Hardman and Ryan.
Yeah.
And Chris Somney. And back then, you could get Chris Somney or Ryan or Gabriel Hardman drawing for nothing. And I don't know why I didn't buy them, because I loved them even then, but I didn't. And now I look back on that and shame.
There's a drawing of me that Gabe did.
Well, Gabe did convention sketches. He would draw people.
Yeah. I don't
And
know
so
if
the
I
last
have
time
that.
you were at a show, which was WonderCon, we did the Darwin Cook panel where you and I and Ron hosted it. He drew you on his you posed for him. He did you a
hunchy ass
for the con sketches. But if money was no object, someone who's currently, I don't know.
I mean, I'm going to say the same thing as Stan Sakai.
Stan Sakai is a really good choice. I also think the money is no object.
And it would be of Usagi Yojimbo, just so we're clear.
To me, I mean, that's a great choice. It's an unimpeachable choice. I think the money is no object to me means that you should focus on getting someone who is maybe at a later stage in their career. And so, like, I would probably go John Romita Jr. Like, I would get, something from him.
You want to get a legend.
Yeah.
Because you want, so, like you might really like Jorge Fornes now. But if he's next to, Alex Ross, then, you've got more time for that.
Exactly.
But also, but the thing is, you never know, right? So
it's true. But then you also wouldn't know if that person would really come to the thing where you're like, art's art, and you can put it at that. But really, like, if you're going to own something and have it be up there, then you want something that has some heft and history to it. Connor, did you have an answer?
I would want a Somni or a Hardman. They're probably expensive now. They probably weren't back then.
I don't know.
Hey, Hardman
Gabe's
there.
going to a lot of conventions.
Oh, I don't. The Stan Sakai, I don't even know who goes anymore. Ryan, do 26.
Okay. Also from Ryan W. from Chicago, Illinois, where I just was. Had a great time, Ryan. Thanks for
original art.
You're blocking the microphone with your art.
Damn. By an up and coming writer. Well, he didn't come, and he was up, but that's me.
Ryan, do the email.
Ryan W. from Chicago, Illinois. In terms of distance, feet, yards, meters, electros, which character, creator, artist, comic book series, etc. takes up the most physical space in your lives, past and present? Spider-Man. I think I've probably got more Spider-Man books on my shelves than any other character.
Definitely Batman.
I don't know. Like, I have
most physical space. It doesn't have to be a character, Josh. It could be creator, artist, series.
To me, I thought about each of the creator, artist, series, whatever. I was never a guy who was like obsessed with I was never Ron's obsession with Uncanny X-Men. Like I never had that in my comic book reading, and like I'm sure there's a ton of Mark Waid and Kurt Busiek and Alan Moore and Jason Aaron on my shelves. But if I had to like visualize, if I stacked all my books together, I think the tallest stack would be the Spider-Man stack.
I would say, and I don't buy a lot of trades anymore, but if I did, if I was like filling it out, it would be a pretty close tie between Alan Moore and Garth Ennis. Like if I could get all of the Hitman trades, I can't. Like it's not out there, but between Hitman, Preacher, and Hellblazer,
I thought they reprinted all those.
I think they started to and then didn't, but I don't remember because like I said, I'm not really buying them. So you know how many like unfinished runs I have? Like it would drive you insane.
Would you say Garth Ennis would be the person who takes the most space in your house, physical?
I mean, it's possible since I have all of the Preacher in both absolute and trade form. I have all of the Hitman books that existed at the time that I was buying them, and I have all the Hellblazers. I would probably add
and you have a Garth
Punisher and Punisher Max. I've got a handful of like random ones that he did. I
think so, maybe so.
Authority Kev was really. I've read. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
There you go, Garth Ennis.
Yeah.
Josh, you're 27.
I haven't been in a long time. James V from Dallas, which I almost read as James versus Dallas, like it's a court case. I've been thinking about this for years. Why are comics not returnable like magazines anymore? Does it have something to do with the fact that with there not being ads in them now, are they considered books instead of periodicals? Most LCSs carry very few shelf copies of books presently, and it seems you need to be a Wednesday warrior to pick up a random book. Wouldn't it be better for everyone if more books were available for purchase? I mean, you want to give them the economics of comics lesson?
Yeah, not the LCS.
So the reasons why they're not returnable anymore is because the companies couldn't afford it anymore, because the company has to pay back anything that comes back as returnable. So in the non-returnable economy, every comic that goes out the door, the company gets paid for because you can't be returned. But if you can return it, the money goes back out the door. And so they almost one of the companies
there's a practical example of this.
One of the companies almost went bankrupt from returnable comics, and so they stopped doing them. They do it in very rare occasions when they're trying to push a book and when they want stores to really over order on them. But it's because the companies have to pay back for the returnable copies when they can't afford it.
And there was I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, because it was the book market had bought a lot of books from a publisher
that happened recently.
Form.
Yeah. But the periodical thing was years ago.
All right, Vertigo doesn't exist anymore. So basically, at one point, DC was doing really well, and I don't know if this was a public thing, but it was well known. And Barnes and Noble, I think, after a long period of time, returned a shit ton of trades.
That was fairly recently, yeah.
And that was a big hit. This is pre-discovery / but like that was a really big deal, and you'll notice like things changed around then.
Yeah, I mean, they have just the margins are so small. They like I said, anything that goes out through Diamond and then to stores is a sell.
I mean, ultimately, it's an economy of scale thing.
Right.
If somebody sells so many, and you can sort of predict, okay, we can expect 5% return, and that's like in printing. There's an expectation of 5% return. So if you make a big print run of a book, we figure 5 to 10% of them are definitely going to come back, and we're going to lose that money. So they figure it into it. At this point, the slice of what each book is making, like to get to a profit, is razor thin. The amount of copies, like there's just too much uncertainty to have that happen. I mean, retailers would love it, I guess, but that's just.
Well, retailers would absolutely love it because they would get money back. And that's the problem, is you get unscrupulous retailers who would, return a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Anyway. It's
they used to sell 1 million comics a month, and now they sell 15,000, and so it's not realistic.
Yeah, in a perfect world, every store should have 50 copies of every book, but it's just the scale. It's such a niche hobby. Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump to 29. Ryan S. from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's got a bunch of questions, and one of them we just kind of talked about. Number one, is there anything you miss about going to conventions? One thing you miss, just one.
I've got an answer.
Go.
Mike Roma.
Hanging out with your buddies. That's the one thing I miss.
100%.
The ones you don't get to see. We're all over the place. I'm in Los Angeles. Josh is in New Hampshire. Ryan's in Washington, D.C. We get to see each other talk to each other all the time. We don't get to see each other all the time, and so that's the thing I miss about that.
I will even specify in that, yes, you guys, but I've said this many times. Like, comics professionals are some of my favorite people to hang out with. They're really usually intelligent and accomplished people, and we were at the point where we were discussing things with them, sort of at the same professional level. I really found that really rewarding and interesting because I got to learn more about the industry that I love so much.
Fun social time.
Yeah,
and,
it is.
It's akin to summer camp, right? You see the people that you only get to see during that special period where you're away from your home, so you don't have the responsibilities and the bullshit that you have to deal with. You don't have to clean dishes when you're at a comic convention. You just get to go out and have a good time.
I remember whatever name dropping, but like there was one night in San Diego and there was a bunch of people going everywhere. And I was with Scotty Young and I was like, what are you going to do tonight? And he's like, I think me and Ryan and Ryan Howard, they're just going to go hang out in the room because they're not party people. And I'm like, me neither. And so we just went, we had pizza and they were doing their sketches all night and we, talked and it was a great night. It was an all-time night. You know what I mean?
The social aspect of it was great.
I think outside of this professional thing that we're talking about, I would say then the other one is the very first time I went to a comic convention in 2000, I think. I went by myself to San Diego and I'd never been to anything like it before. And I was really just coming into my own as a comic book reader and sort of understanding what's going on. And
this was the trip that was very important to the formation of
iFanboy. And I walked around and at one point, like I was standing next to Will Eisner, who was just there and everyone's around. And I just thought, and this was my main thing about comics back then was just like, there isn't a convention where you can go and be standing next to Martin Scorsese and strike up a conversation with him, but you can do this in comics. And I remember being blown away by that concept.
Or watch Martin Scorsese shoot a short film, whereas I can go watch Frank Quietly sketch, or I can go watch sketch, or I can go watch Will Eisner sketch.
Maybe just go to those panels. You used to be able to, like, they weren't, you could just go talk.
There's not a convention where you can go and, hey, say, Jack White, can you play a riff for me?
Right. An original riff that no one else has.
Right.
They're great. I like going to them. It's just, the business case for it is hard.
They've changed a lot. I think that also has we didn't say that earlier.
Kind of the same. That was the hard thing about going to 16 Comic Cons is they're kind of the same every time.
I don't mean that.
People don't change the same.
I think he means temporarily.
I mean, well, yes, but like San Diego, Hollywood fucked it a little bit.
But it's not. That's the thing. It hasn't changed. It's the same show. If you went there next year, it's the same booths and the same people. Terry Moore is still at his booth. They're all still there. It's the same. So after a while, you're just kind of like Groundhog Day. It's like
that's fair.
I've been to this. Some of them are a little DC changed its booth, but moved to a different spot. But that's really everyone else is still in the same spot.
They used to just give out sketches, though.
That's different. Second question, which I think we can work on collectively. If you were to each choose 5 collected editions or comics or OGNs published during the iFanboy era, so that's 2000 to 2024, to be included in an iFanboy Essentials imprint, what would you pick? So any publisher, anything. What are the 5 trades for the iFanboy Essentials collection? New Frontiers, obviously on the list.
So you can't include the entire Preacher run. You have to include one volume.
Yeah,
I'm asking.
Yeah. If there was one volume, five collected editions.
So let's take that to mean a single book.
A single book, 5 single books. One of them is New Frontier.
Okay, wait though. Also, it says OGNs published. Now, I don't think that should include reprints. These should be stories that came out. So I can't say Watchmen, even though they published Absolute Watchmen during this time.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair.
Airboy.
Look, we every issue was pick of the week, but I don't know.
How is that not an essential then?
Well,
no, I don't know.
I'll tell you one reason, and not just for the controversy around it, which I think is kind of bullshit in a way. But I think that we haven't talked about it or thought about it since then. In that time,
okay, it's hard because I can think of tons of series like Scalped, but not a single volume would be an essential. Or
I think we need to pick one of the Tom King Maxi series. If it was totally up to me,
yes,
I would go Human Target. But there's a case we made for a lot
Mr.
of
Miracle
them.
might.
Mr. Miracle's
I would edge out
too.
Mr. Miracle, but Human
that's
Target I
fine.
could be fine with Human Target. But I would say Mr. Miracle because it's sort of.
Day Tripper. Somebody put Day Tripper in the chat. I think that's a great choice.
That's a good choice. Oh, I had it and it went.
Mysterious Polyp.
That was what I was going to say. That was it. Mysterious Polyp.
So we have New Frontier. We have Mysterious Polyp. We have Mr. Miracle.
I would add.
Was there a fourth one I just missed? I don't have a Marvel one.
Wait, there was
Mysterious Polyp. You said Airboy, but I think
Airboy.
Whoa! This is important. The first volume, Josh, of New Avengers.
It's pretty good.
Just because it's important. No, it's important, Ryan, to iFanboy.
No, I'm thinking about it.
It got Josh sort of back into superhero comics.
It's true.
Was it called Breakout? Breakout.
Yes, it was.
New Avengers Breakout.
All right,
I don't think this is going to go for it. It was my list. I would put Box Office Poison.
Was that from 2000?
It was after I was in LA. Like, so it would have been like the collected edition.
I'm not against it.
But I don't know that it necessarily.
Somebody mentioned.
Oh, we had Day Tripper on there.
Somebody mentioned Flintstones in the chat.
No, not Flintstones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have Day Tripper, New Frontier, Mysterious Polyp, Mr. Miracle, and New Avengers Breakout. That's what I have for the Fanboy Essentials.
2001 was Box Office Poison.
Yeah, that fits in.
I feel like there's something we're missing. I'm sure. I mean, there has to be. There's
tons of missing. All-Star Superman. Yeah, someone said that.
Look at you and me. That's twice. I was like, your Mysterious Polyp. Read my mind. We both said that at the same time.
That's tough. I don't. What do you lose for All-Star Superman?
Somebody wrote Thor: The Mighty Avenger, and I had been meaning to say that. Although that may be more of a like.
I love that book. But I don't know how to put it as a top 5.
If it's Connor and me, G.I. Joe Cobra.
I wouldn't necessarily say no. I couldn't say no. All right. His final question is: continuity feels like it's almost
Parker books. We put
New fuck!
I think New Frontier. If we're gonna just
New Frontier,
I think
New Frontier trumps Parker. His final question: continuity feels like it has almost entirely eroded at this point, with both positive and negative effects. I've been thinking about this since I reread Hush over the weekend and was reminded in story that Lex Luthor was the president at the time. Say what you will about Lex, he actually divested from LexCorp during his presidency. Beyond Nothing Makes Sense, Nothing Matters, what is your personal view of continuity in contemporary superhero books?
I love that Lex was president, by the way.
I'm a complete adherent and devotee to the Kilpatrick school of you pick and choose and you make it yourself.
Otherwise you go nuts.
I don't know that it, but I'm firmly in the camp of, which kind of what you're saying, but I like that it doesn't. I understand now that can't make sense. So if you embrace that, I mean, it's the no prize ethic. Here's a genius thing that Stan Lee did. He was like, "Yup, doesn't make sense.
It's never going to make
prize.
sense. You got to do what you can. Continuity can be great and create amazing story moments, but it can also be an anchor, and it's tough."
And, big dumb superhero, gosh, good old superhero. There's wait a minute. So BDSH, that doesn't work.
I thought you were spelling BDSM for a second.
Well, it was going there. It was anyway about eugenics. No, like you can look at continuity errors as a weakness, but you can also look at them as a strength. My friend Patrick, he'll probably be listening at some point, but every once in a while he'll send me some dumbass panel from a comic, and he'll just go, "I love comics." Yeah. And like the last, was some panel from that Reed and Johnny misadventure from the last Fantastic Four,
right?
And that's great. That's the Grant Morrison thing that from Super Gods that sort of changed my outlook on everything. It's just like
Super Gods was very important to really resetting our feeling on superhero comics and what they should be.
Like the continuity is like the thing where you go, wait a minute, Peter Parker couldn't possibly live that life, and you're like, correct.
But if you assume the Marvel Universe has a 38-hour day,
there's things that happen in between panels that don't make any sense, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
To me, the continuity as a benefit versus a crutch just comes down to how you utilize it. So like, I always thought one of the strengths that like Donny Cates has as a writer is he'll find something from the old continuity that didn't really make sense, but he'll turn it into a story point for a story he wants to tell in the modern era. And I thought he was like really good at finding ways to do that. It was subtle, but impactful and made sense logically.
And that can go badly in your Brand New Day sense. So like that can be like when I think one of the worst things they do is when they go back and try to reconcile continuity that doesn't need to be, and
just let it be. Yeah.
I just thinking about it is like you have nothing that makes sense, nothing matters on the screen, and it's really interesting because you can think of that in a negative way or a positive way, because it sounds like a complaint at first. Man, what are we going to do? It's nothing makes sense, nothing matters, or you know what? Nothing makes sense. Nothing matters.
It was never meant to be a negative. It just is what it is.
I know. I'm saying like
it's almost like
used...
to me, it's like, are you being retrospective? Are you being prospective? So are you looking backwards or are you looking forwards? And if you're, I feel like an author like Donny Cates, to me, he's like the best modern person at doing this. He would only pull something from deep in the continuity if it made sense for the story he was telling that was moving forward. He wasn't trying to explain anything that happened before. He was just trying to tell the story that what comes next.
Yeah, like let's say, hey, what about Donald Blake?
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Like, yeah, exactly.
Ryan, do 30.
Question 30 from Jordan Thomas. If you had to choose a comic creator, living or dead, to be a permanent Jamoke on the show, who would it be? Howard Chaykin.
I'd like to point out Jordan Thomas was in the chat earlier, but he had to go to bed because he's in Spain. So
Howard Chaykin just based
not
off
just a comment on the fact that they like to take naps in Spain. It's just very late.
It's a little siesta.
So, all right. So
I would never want a comic creator to be a host on the show.
I'm gonna not take issue with you. So my first comic creator, living or dead, who would you? And I was like Darwin. And then I read the question further, and I went permanent Jamoke, and I was like, if I could have anybody on the show regularly, I would have Gabriel Hardman on it every single week. I would.
I love him, but it wouldn't be fun after a while.
I know, but like he'd have to read them and talk about them, and he could be grumpy about some stuff. But
I love him, and he's super smart about everything. But I would never want anyone too close to anything to be on the show because they couldn't objectively talk about anything.
When I was doing work for Marvel, and I had to interview a lot of creators about the books, specifically, the person that I always felt like I tried to have a rapport with everyone, but the person I always felt like I was able to really get into the weeds with and have interesting, deeper conversations was Kieran Gillen. I really appreciate his perspective on the craft of comics. He did a podcast for a while called Decompressed. And so yeah, Kieran might be but I agree fundamentally that it's not a good idea.
You could understand what he was saying.
Well, another story for another time.
Josh, go do 31.
Jackie T from Queens, old school, by the way. I mean, Jackie T's been around since way back.
Yep.
Top 5 history books. Go.
Just pick
history,
one.
Just any history book.
One history book each.
I got it. I got my one.
One.
Yeah, me too.
Pick one. Go ahead.
Devil in the White City, Eric Larson.
Good choice. Mine is The Path Between the Seas by Dave McCullough.
Ooh. I've had
Josh, say yours again so people can hear
it. Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. Followed closely by Manhunt.
And mine is Path Between the Seas, Dave McCullough, which is about the history of the Panama Canal.
Manhunt is a great book.
God, I should have said The Power Broker.
The Devil in the White. Well, that's coming up later. The Devil in the White City is a great book. I'm just going to go. One of my favorite World War II books is D-Day, which is a very Beevor.
Yes.
Very intensely researched book just about D-Day.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you entirely through it, and it was very good. All right, we got to start jumping around now.
Dave McCullough's Truman book is amazing.
I want to his Wright Brothers book is on my list. I want to read that one.
Yeah. That Truman book is like that might be the best man who was ever president. Not the best president, but like
the best person, human being.
Yeah, he was a really good person. After you get past the racist stuff of his youth, which he did.
Josh, do 35.
Juan P. of Los Angeles, California. I'm sorry.
That was great. I love that.
Yeah, I live there. I've been rewatching Smallville for a little over a year now, and I have occasionally thought about you guys while watching. I know the show meant a lot to the iFanboy team, 2/3, when it was on, and you guys even did an episode to commemorate the series finale. I've been wondering where Smallville stands in your superhero show rankings now that there's been so many shows. Is it still at the top? If so, why? If not, why? I've been talking about this question off and on for a year now, but finally decided to write and ask after your website was referenced on Talkville's. What? Our website was referenced on Talkville's episode 100 podcast.
It was?
Whoa.
That's cool. I didn't know
that's
that. Yes, Talkville, Michael Rosenbaum, and Clark.
Tom Welling.
Tom Welling are doing a rewatch show, like many shows of that era, and I don't listen to it regularly, but I occasionally watch a clip on YouTube whenever it's something sultry and like tabloid. Like what did Kristen Kruk really think of this scene? I've checked out those. I like Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling. I think they're both interesting actors with it.
I did not know they referenced us. That's interesting. I have to.
That's cool. I'm going to check that out. I'm excited.
So Ryan, you also watched Smallville. Where does it rank for you?
I don't. The superhero TV shows, similar to their comic counterparts, are to me sort of like they're magazines where like I in one ear out the other. I can enjoy them, but I don't. To me, they don't have a long-standing place in my pantheon of media that I consume. Like I could rank most of the Marvel movies that I've seen, but regular shows, I just don't care enough about them. Smallville's, I enjoyed it for what it was, and I just don't watch a ton of superhero shows, so it'd probably rank fairly highly, but not because I have any particular affection or nostalgia for it.
Yeah, I think.
Are there any that you'd watch again? I'd watch the Watchmen show again.
Yeah.
Well, hold Watchmen discussion till later.
That's different.
My favorite superhero TV show of all time is Batman 66, but so I wouldn't put Smallville at the top because Batman 66 is at the top. But I still kind of look at Smallville more fondly than the ones that like Smallville birthed the whole like 10-year plus run of other Flash and Arrow, and they call it the Arrowverse, but Arrow doesn't happen without Smallville being successful. It births all those shows, and so I still would put Smallville ahead of them, even as much as I enjoyed Arrow and enjoyed Flash and enjoyed Legends, and the other ones somewhat less. But
and you're mostly talking about the DC,
the DC
CW ones. Not
it birthed that whole thing. So I'm not talking about the Disney Plus one. That's almost such a different beast. It's a whole other thing.
It's a different era. Like I almost like, how do I compare Smallville to The Boys? I just don't know how I. Like,
right,
they're it's
tough.
And I also think I've often said that Tom Welling is an underrated Clark. And
he's a great Clark, great Superman. Let's jump to 37. Kevin S. from Fairfax, Virginia.
I was in Fairfax last weekend.
I've been thinking about this question since Goodfellas Minute ended. If the Mafia existed, what would you say are the golden, silver, and bronze ages for Mafia history? And who was the Jack Kirby or Stan Lee of La Cosa Nostra?
Our thing?
I mean, this is a totally hypothetical question because this is obviously there's no such thing as the Mafia.
And nor if there was, which there isn't, I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't be saying
I would definitely wouldn't comment on it.
I'm trying to remember my history, which I'm a little, but isn't I like Lucky Luciano is the one who sort of revolutionized and changed things, so he'd kind of be the Stan Lee in that way.
The Bronze Age has got to be like Vegas, right?
Yeah, so the golden age is the creation is the bootlegging era, the creation of the
right, and then the silver age is like the silver age is
40s and 50s, sort of the
silver
garbage.
Age is post bootlegging, where they really consolidate and
post World War II through the 60s.
And then the Bronze Age is casinos.
The Bronze Age is like moving into Vegas, moving into the West Coast. And then you're right. And Lucky Luciano. And who was the other one? Was it Meyer Lansky?
Yeah.
So Lansky and Luciano are the Kirby and Lee of whatever this made up thing we're talking about is.
Yeah. I don't feel entirely.
But I feel iffy on that because I haven't. It's been a while since I've.
If anybody hasn't, there's a book called the what was it? The Five Families.
The Five Families, yeah.
By Selwyn Rabb. There's also a fantastic book which isn't exactly related, but is called Tough Jews.
That's a great one
about the Jewish mafia.
Tough Jews is great.
Which is much more related than we would have left. Rich Cohen is the author of that.
Another great book that's tangential is The Westies, which is all about the Irish
Oh,
gangs in New York.
What was the garbage one that you sent?
Oh, unfinished. No. Takedown. It's about how the mafia got an undercover FBI agent took down the mafia's garbage control, which basically crippled them.
And the thing about that is that you realize just how much, like how they infiltrated everybody's real life. You know what I mean?
Yes. Ryan, do 40.
I can answer 50% of 38, but I will go to 40.
Yeah, we got to skip stuff though. We're just getting to the time.
I would cast Mark Maron Stanley. Okay. Matthew C. from Baltimore, Maryland. I was in Baltimore last weekend as well. It recently occurred to me that I haven't ever heard the hosts mention watching the show The Venture Brothers. The show is essentially a clever homage to the comic book heroes and G.I. Joe, among other nerdy references, and seems like something that would mesh with your sensibilities. My question is, have you all watched the show? If so, did you enjoy it? Or am I just being annoying with a question you get asked all the time?
We've never been asked this question.
Never watched it, never been asked the question.
So much like recently when Josh and I talked about how we were slightly too old for the whole Power Rangers Japanese manga, like how everybody of a certain age only watches manga, like everyone who's like in their 20s. We missed all that. I also missed the 2000s Adult Swim cartoon era because I was graduating college and working. I didn't watch any of that stuff, so never seen the Venture Brothers.
Venture Brothers is after that, I think.
It's part of the Adult Swim stuff. All the Adult Swim stuff. Yeah,
I did watch some of the Adult Swim stuff, but really the earlier parts. So like C Lab 2021 and Hunger Force. But even that, just sort of the beginning bit. Harvey Birdman, because I was a Space Ghost person.
Right.
But there was a certain point, I think, a little after that. So you're talking about your early 20s, and I just didn't watch much TV then.
Yeah, I was too busy working and or partying.
So Venture Brothers was 2003 through 2010.
So I was pretty much just mainlining HBO series at that point that I'm still watching now over and over.
Yeah, I missed that. Yeah.
And it was the sort of thing where by the time I knew what it was and how popular it was, it felt like it sort of like 2000 AD. It felt like it was too deep for me to catch up on easily at that era of streaming. And I did watch things like Archer and Rick and Morty and
like those shows I never will watch. But honestly, for me, just at a certain point, I stopped watching animated shows just because I was like, I have to cut myself off from this segment because I don't know what's good. I don't want to spend the time. I did watch BoJack Horseman. That's later.
Yeah, BoJack
Horseman's really good.
Really good. Connor, you mentioned Power Rangers. Several folks have mentioned in the chat, but neither of you have commented.
What?
Angel Grove.
I don't know what that means.
Established 1993. Mighty Morphin High School.
Didn't even.
Yeah, see, I was in high school at that time and not watching Power Rangers.
Go, Power Rangers.
Next question is from Calm, from Cork, Ireland. Calm says, as a relatively new listener that is still figuring out your tastes.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
I have a question that I'm hoping you can answer for me. Hold on. I need to just switch to a different thing here. Sorry. Okay. Actually, just before I ask my question, I should mention that I'm not an avid superhero comic reader. I've read a decent chunk of the classics, and I read anything modern that people point to as extra special. My reading is mostly stuff from outside the big two. But I do want to make it clear that I don't hate superheroes or anything like that. In fact, I really enjoy superhero stories that aren't the status quo. So all that preamble aside, my question is this. Why do you hate Batman and love Spider-Man? I think he means Amazing Spider-Man.
Sure.
Or maybe it's a better phrase like this. What makes a good superhero story in 2024? Because, and please correct me if I'm wrong, again, a relatively new listener here, it seems like you prefer it when writers don't tinker with established characters too much. So does characterization trump plot in relation to established heroes?
I think this is a very...
Don't come in here and throw bombs at us 19 years in, Calm.
Don't tell Irish people not to throw bombs.
As the words were leaving my lips, I was like, this was the wrong metaphor. But I had to finish the sentence. Otherwise, you think I had a stroke.
Cork is about as far from Belfast as you get. Still, though.
I understand. Listen.
That was unfortunate.
My name is Conor Kilpatrick. I grew up in New York City. I know. The words were coming out, and I couldn't stop it.
All right. So when you wrote... I actually think this is a really interesting question because
it's a great question.
It says that there's context to the things that we talk about that people who don't listen a lot or are new might not quite have grasped, and I think that that's obvious here, and I think it's perfectly respectful. Now, what did get me here is like, why do you hate Batman and love Spider-Man? And that right away is like, oh, that's you know, that makes it sound like you're actually specifically talking about the current runs of those series.
Yeah, there's so much nuance to this. This is interesting.
It's so then the last part of it is what makes a good superhero story in 2024, and that's a really interesting question.
Yeah,
because I don't know that I could define it. I think this is one of those like I don't know if I can define art, but I know what I like.
Pornography.
Yeah,
You're saying he likes pornography?
I'm saying you know when you see it.
Everyone likes pornography. It is a know it when you see it thing. It's like a perfect chemical cocktail of things working or not working. And the question is, don't tinker with established characters too much. I think that is true to a certain extent.
You can't change the character's core. And this seems to be a controversial opinion. I don't know why it is, but it seems to be. These characters have to exist for generations. They are not ours. They existed in the 60s, in the 30s, in the 50s. They've got to exist in the 2050s and the 2250s. So you can't, if you start tinkering with their core being, then they no longer can do that. They have to stay at who they are. They're not ours. But I think the nuance I mentioned earlier is that the Damian problem of Batman aside, which I'm not the only one that thinks that Damian has broken the character. The problem is with Batman is exhaustion. They have been doing nothing but Batman's world will never be the same stories for about 5 years. And it's exhausting.
And what we just talked about at the beginning of the show was a version of Batman who is Batman, but he's having, I don't know, fun's the right word, but it's
just a crime story. There wasn't like the
right.
implication wasn't we're going to reveal something about Dick Grayson that's going to shake Bruce Wayne to his core. That's what they would do in the regular book because that's what they've been doing for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I love Batman more than anything. Right behind me in this video is a whole shelf full of Batman figures, and you can't see, but it's a whole shelf full of Batman books. It's just when every story is going to shake Bruce Wayne to his core, it doesn't matter anymore. It's no longer impactful.
You're not going to understand.
And that's why we criticize the Batman book because it's been like that for so long.
You're not going to understand this because you're in Ireland, but if you have pizza, you know what you want from pizza.
The worst food poisoning I've ever had was a pizza that I had in Galway.
Fish and chips, Josh.
I'm hallucinating. That's how
I'm saying like you have the pizza and you know instantly. Sometimes you know before you've eaten it. You look at it, is this going to be good or not? You take a bite and the idea of your mind is, I need this what I'm eating to be pizza. There's lots of different ways for something to be pizza, but ultimately I want that feeling that I expect from pizza. And so if you were reading Amazing Spider-Man, which is a thing that Connor and I really loved, or you were reading Fantastic Four or World's Finest, then as you go into that, you are getting what it is that you expect from it. Now, that is difficult to define from time to time and is somewhat of an unknowable, but there's a feeling. And so Connor, who is a world-renowned lover of pizza / Batman, goes into Batman and he says, there's a lot about this that I want to like, but something is wrong. Yeah. Somebody put star anise in this. Somebody is trying to reinvent pizza too much, and it is not giving me that pizza feeling. And so... And does characterization trump plot? There's no rule.
Yeah, but it's all this. It's all mixed in.
Feel right.
Yeah,
and it has to be entertaining, and it has to give you what you went there for. You do not. I would suggest that if you
I would suggest.
I say you wouldn't know what a Batman was until it spit you in the ass. No, I would suggest that if you are reading a Batman book, if you are a 45-year-old person, I don't know how old you are. But if you've been reading comics for a very long time and you read a Batman book, you don't want them to reinvent Batman. It's like a Law and Order episode. You want it to feel like a Law and Order episode. If you want to see somebody reinvent the form and do something crazy, I don't want to see it in Batman. I don't want to see it in Amazing Spider-Man.
But there are avenues for that. There are Elseworlds books or
all of it.
But the point is, the reason why we bag on Batman is because they have decided to go in this one direction, which seems to me, no one's ever said it before, but it seems to me because they have to sell trades, and the best way to sell a trade is to put a thing on the cover that says this story will change, Batman's life, as opposed to here's some awesome, solid Batman solving crime stories. Which one is easier to sell? I know if I'm the marketing department, which one I'm going to push for. So That's the
And
problem.
every writer comes into it wanting to make their own.
I've got my Batman story that's going to change everything you ever thought about Batman. Spider-Man has been in the opposite direction, which we talked about a lot in the show, which is it's the closest that you get in comics right now to 80s Marvel style storytelling, and they've been this is the most important part, executing it flawlessly.
That's a good point. And the other thing with Spider-Man versus Batman in this particular context is like, I feel like some of the better Spider-Man's supposed to be a character who's silly and he's cracking jokes and he's talking lies. And so some of the really impactful Spider-Man stories, this is the Spider-Man story that changed everything, are when he drops the pretense and he says, "No tombstone, we're going to go for issue after issue. And it's going to be really intense and serious and knockdown, drag out." Whereas Batman's a character who's already serious, and we talked about this a bit earlier with the Batman and Robin issue, where like seeing Batman smile is the twist, and I think that's a harder thing to sell.
There's a reason why Batman and Robin this week felt like a warm bath, is because I haven't read a Batman story like this in so long, and that it's just a Batman story. Two-Face is out there, and Batman and Robin go and stop him, and that's it. Didn't reveal that Two-Face is actually Batman's dad, because that's what I've been reading for 15 years in the Batman books. We got to move on. This was a great question. We could talk about it for another half an hour. Josh, do 42.
42. Life. Universe.
The answer to the question. Yeah.
John V of Brooklyn, New York.
Also an old school guy.
Yeah, I was about to ask.
Still living in Brooklyn, by the way. Good for you, John.
I hope you
don't know how you're affording it, but good for you.
I hope you got your hands on some real estate back in the 90s and everything's going great. What is the deal? Except that your plumbing is probably in shambles. What is the deal with the size of the Eisner jury? The Hollywood Foreign Press gets made fun of for their only having 100 members. Cannes jury has 8, but there's a limited number of movies competing to see everything. Sure, there's less in comics and movies. How can the Eisners expect 6 people to read enough to cover all the best stuff?
We have so many problems with the Eisner jury, but
I mean, I think again it is an.
We are never getting nominated, so we can speak truth to power here. I think we have to be fair. The Hollywood Foreign Press mostly gets made fun of, not for the number of members, it's because the members who are in it, at least this is prior to the quote unquote changes, were completely and totally incompetent and not had no expertise. They weren't really journalists. They were made fun of because they weren't qualified to be doing what they were doing. Not so much the size, it was the qualifications. Now, so if anyone doesn't know, the Eisner Awards obviously are the Oscars of comics, and every year a jury of 6 people chooses the books to be nominated. And every year that number, that makeup changes. It's not the same 6 people every year. It's a different group every year. And so my problem is that you don't know what you're getting from year to year. So one year, this group's taste is totally esoteric and indie and weird, and the next year it's totally mainstream and superhero-y. And so you get totally different nominations from year to year. It's hard. If you're trying to produce award-winning work, it's hard to know, it depends on who the jury is going to be. And so like if you're doing a great superhero book, but this is the year that the indie jury, then you're never going to get nominated. It doesn't matter ultimately, but that's my problem is that there's no consistency to who's doing the jury. I think it should be a set jury. That's what
I'm sure that these people exist, but I feel like I've never talked to a.
And that jury should know what a podcast is. Sorry,
I'm sure that. Well, you know what? Okay, so
it's been 19 years.
He's referring to the fact that for a long time we tried to get nominated, I guess, for journalism, because it was the closest we have, and we
would submit ourselves for the comics media category, and never got nominated.
Because
and not just but not just for podcasting, Josh, because that was the year we did hundreds of articles and we had a whole thing going, and then you talked to Jackie, right?
Jackie, yes.
Jackie's in charge. You talked to her, and she was like, "We don't really know how to handle podcasts," and that was in 2009.
No, and I get that.
It made sense then, but it's been.
I know, and I understand it. Like it's the same thing, but they don't know what they're doing. I mean, the same 2 people have won. Actually, now it's just the one person because Tom, what's his name, died. Like they win journalism every year because there's no. The fact is, 6 people do it. and that's like a quarter or a third of the entire comic reading audience. I mean, what are you gonna do?
They got rid of. That's funny. They got rid of. See, I acknowledge your joke. They got rid of the journalism category for 1 year, and they brought it back immediately. But you're right; it goes to like the same 4 blogs because that's all there is. But for whatever reason, and I'm not saying. I'll say it. We deserved one Eisner. There was 1 year. It was the year that I got really mad that we didn't get even nominated. Was where we were doing 7 podcasts a week. We had a full staff of writers pumping out 10 to 12 articles a day. I thought we were the best comic book media outlet by far. Just from no one else was doing what we were doing. No one. Didn't even get nominated. That was the only year I was really mad about it. But they haven't expanded beyond. Here are some fan blogs. Here is Comics Beat, and here is Comics Journal, and that's the people that get nominated and win every year.
I think we've all experienced this in our careers outside of iFanboy.
We're like, keep drinking.
The more you get embedded in an industry, the more you see that, like, however prestigious something appears from the outside, the inside of it is probably kind of mundane and held together with Scotch tape.
Sure.
And so, like, I've referenced a couple of episodes going to Chicago. The conference I went to in Chicago was this giant, prestigious conference for the Association of Science and Technology Centers, and I know the husband of one of the presenters at this conference listens to the show, so hello. But I also know that person was presenting because of a last-minute cancellation and change. So, like, even at some of these really seemingly prestigious events, things happen behind the scenes that are chaotic, that are silly, that are small, that are not high level, not prestigious, not thinking about the bigger picture. They're just trying to get the job done because the Eisners have to go out and you have to make a decision and somebody has to make that decision. And so sometimes it's just like, it's the person who gets the email out in time.
And it's a full-time job that people can't get paid for. So
to me, it's more that they just refuse to look beyond what they've always done. And the point that we're at 19 years now of comic book podcasts, and no one has been nominated. And she said we don't know how to handle it, and maybe they're afraid they don't have to listen to every episode. Have everybody submit one episode.
With an Emmy.
That's what the Emmys do. They don't make you watch all the episodes of Law and Order. They submit the one. Well, listen, we will submit one podcast. And that's what you listen to. But, like, it's just ridiculous. Whatever.
I know we're whatever, but I'm going to make a point. Because I did want to want to talk about
Ryan,
this.
You did 43.
Do it. Wait. So tangentially, everyone probably saw the IDW logo came out. Yeah, just horrible. Like horrendous. And I was talking to a friend of mine. He said, you can't let this go. And I said, no, because it's a visual medium.
Yeah.
And that was the point where I go, I got to tell you something. Nobody in comics other than the writers and artists have had an original thought in 30 years. I have been getting, I'm not kidding, I have been getting the same press release in the same format the entire 20 years I've been here. You'll see stories all the time, like so-and-so had a new marketing director. Nobody fucking does anything different ever in any way at all. Yes. It is always the same. I haven't even seen other ideas get tried. And like from a publishing standpoint, so like again that went one further. Like there was like because the idea was that IDW had introduced an imprint, and they were like, why did they have to have imprints? So it's because Image did. So then everybody else does it too, because everyone just goes, what did somebody do before that was cool, and then they do that. The industry of comics is bullshit, and that's why graphic novels are taking off, because they're doing different kinds of stories, and comics are holding on to this tiny group of aging, cranky men who want the same thing all the time, and that's why Batman was fucked up.
Yeah, who wants to listen to guys being cranky?
Ryan did 43.
James L. from Vermont, back again. I was just thinking the other day about when Paul Scheer talked about how much he liked iFanboy in an interview with the AV Club. Google says this was 2014, a decade ago. Yeesh.
I was like, that wasn't recently, but I think.
Did you ever reach out to him after that? He's written some comics here and there. Have you thought about doing a Talksplode with him, or even asking him to guest on the show sometime? Did he get a patron power that I didn't notice? Paul, are you out there?
I actually have a story about this.
There are some people who are celebrities who've gotten patron powers. That
well, hold on. Yeah, that was part of the story. But yes, so Yes, in a 2014 interview, the comedian Paul Scheer said they would ask him what he listened to, and he listened to a bunch of podcasts, and one of them he said was iFanboy, which freaked us out. So maybe around 2016 or 17, maybe 15, I was at Comic-Con. I was at the EW party, which is where all the celebrities go. It's all the people that have been invited to Comic-Con go to this party. And I was at the bar, and I looked over, and there was Paul Scheer. And I thought, should I say something? And then I thought, maybe he wasn't being serious. And then that would suck. So I didn't say a word. And that was the closest I got to saying, because maybe he did. Maybe it wasn't as big of a deal. And I didn't want to be like, hey, Paul, I host iFanboy. And him go, so? And I'd be like, oh, well, that would have sucked. So I just didn't do it.
I wouldn't have done it then, but I would do it now.
I might do it now, but I didn't. Now, the other thing that Ryan just said was, yes, we actually have another famous listener, at least one other famous listener, who was also, at least at one point, a Patreon. I don't know if he still is. But we have agreed to keep him anonymous. We actually checked with his assistant because he was eligible for a patron power. And we said, do you want us to give him one, or does he want to stay anonymous? And they said, actually, it would be great if you didn't. He wants to stay anonymous. So there are a couple, and this other person is also a comedian, and it freaks me out a little bit that professional comedians listen to our dumb jokes.
Has been in stuff with Paul, sure. Like I
very funny.
I wonder if Paul is recommending it to his friends, and Josh was the one who gave the power. I remember what the power is. I won't say it, but
so
I'll talk to you later, Josh.
Okay, where do I go?
44. I'll do it for you because I think you're going to answer this. Chris A from Bainbridge Island, Washington. My 14-year-old son said that he really wants to get into the mosh pit at the next concert we go to. What age is mosh pit appropriate? For context, he's 5'9", 118 pounds. Josh, have you ever been in a mosh pit?
Yeah, I'll tell you what age isn't appropriate for a mosh pit. It's from at least 45 on. I can tell you that much. I went to a Bad Religion show right before the pandemic, I think, and I decided I would
I know Ron moshes, but you actually mosh too.
I mean, not
I used to.
I've done
Ryan,
it,
you also mosh.
Oh
now I
time,
don't want
big time.
to. I'm at this Bad Religion show in Webster Hall. First of all, Webster Hall is terrifying because the crowd starts to bounce and the floor goes up and down like a trampoline. I was like, this is old architecture and I need to be out of here.
That's how I felt at a Mets game with Ron when in the playoffs when the whole upper deck started doing this. And I was like, this is going to go down, Ron.
Anyway, so I'm standing. I decided to get kind of close because I was in the city and Ron bailed on me. Didn't go, I was by myself. And I swear the first note, the first chord that was struck, a beer hit me in the head, and I was like, "Fuck this!"
I'm out.
And I backed up and I went somewhere else. 5'9", 118. If he wants to do it, that sounds perfect. Think about a mosh pit is, and this remains consistent as long as you're not a woman. And I don't mean that as like people grope and it's terrible, but for the most part, those crowds are really helpful. If you're at a good show, in the people, if you fall down, they make sure it's not about getting hurt. It's about that physical release or whatever, but they don't want people to get hurt. It's not actually violent. I mean, unless you're at a weird, horrible, show.
Unless you're in a green room.
I mean, the thing is, go to a show, go in it. Don't want to be in there? Get out. You're going to be fine.
Exactly. Yep.
You're good.
Also, at that age, you bounce right back.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Injury. You're basically, your bones are rubber.
I think peak mosh pit era for me was like 16 to 20. Like that's sort of the range for me. But
I would say it was for me. It was like, just because I didn't go to a lot, just because there weren't any good shows because I was in Maine. 18 to 24.
Yeah.
We're entering the home stretch, by the way, guys. Josh, do 47.
Alexander B. of Dorchester, Massachusetts says, are there any comic acts that stick in your mind for no particular?
Nope, 47.
47. Jesus. I just really wanted to read Dorchester. Ryan D. of Minneapolis says that we live in a world where we have 3 sequels across 2 different media for Watchmen, Doomsday Clock, Rorschach, and the HBO miniseries. In your headcanon, which would you say is the definitive sequel? HBO.
None of them.
That's fair.
Yeah.
In my headcanon, there is no sequel to Watchmen, and those are. I enjoyed all of them. I liked all of them, but none of them are. They're all fun little larks, but to me, none of them are.
Yeah, I would say.
I think Josh and I are going about to rank things in the exact same order of HBO, Rorschach, and then Doomsday Clock. And Doomsday Clock to me is almost a non-starter. Like I don't consider it.
I'm struggling to remember what it is. That's the Jeff Johns, Gary Frank one.
Yes, that's where they made Dr. Manhattan, sort of the secret villain of the DC universe. And
it was solid, but it
didn't go anywhere because no one else.
Yeah.
They had stuck Jeff Johns in a bubble and said, "You just do it, write whatever you want. No one else is going to affect anything you do."
All of those were solid at the least. Remember in Rorschach, remember Frank Miller?
Rorschach was great.
Yeah, it was. They all were.
But to me, they're just like, whatever.
I was the most impressed by the HBO miniseries in that I didn't understand why or how it existed.
Right. Chernobyl was really good too.
Josh, I think we should go back since you started and said his name. So go back and read 45.
Alexander B. of Dorchester, Massachusetts says, "Are there any comic arcs that stick in your mind for no particular reason? For me, it's Spider-Man: The Other from 2005 or so. JMS. I don't know if anything from it really stuck in the greater continuity, but there were a couple of panels, in particular the cocoon hanging from the Brooklyn Bridge, that still linger today."
So do you ever think, like, do random arcs ever just pop into your head? I guess
honestly, there's a scene in, I don't know if it's specifically in Spider-Man the Other, but it's in that JMS run where there's a future version of Spider-Man that has, I think, my favorite version of what a future Spider-Man costume looks like, because he's got like a reversible jacket, so he can quickly just, he's older Peter Parker, so he can just flip his jacket around and there's a spider emblem on the back, and that sticks in my head for whatever reason. Not really continuity.
So many stories. It doesn't have to be continuity, just anything you've read that sort of pops in your head. I mean,
I feel like I remember every Sentry story I ever read. Like
that's how you work out. Like you're angrily pumping iron while looking at Sentry stories on your wall.
No, but even that's changed. I don't even hate it anymore. Now
I mentioned it.
It's a stupid idea that
I mentioned it in the show the other day, and we kind of glazed past it, which was fine. It was running long, but Walking Dead, the Walking Dead issue 100, which is the end of an arc. I can't remember what the arc is called, but that to me is maybe the most traumatized I've been by an issue of comics, and so it sticks in my mind because I can't get it out of there.
Remember when Captain America, Rick Remender, was in the Z dimension or whatever it was?
Yeah.
I think about that a lot.
That's a weird era of comics for me in general, because that's when I was doing freelance work for Marvel, and so I read all of those scripts that Rick wrote, but I didn't necessarily read all the issues. So I remember everything that happened in those issues, but I didn't see the art.
Great JR.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I read some of them, but I didn't read all
You know what?
of them.
Actually, a lot of those Rick Remender Marvel stories have stuck with me. Like, I think of
Secret
the
Avenger.
weird Flash
Uncanny
Thompson
X4.
is
X4.
Yeah.
Uncanny X-Men or Uncanny X-Force?
Uncanny Avengers.
Secret Avengers.
Right, yeah.
Secret Avengers was in that too. The weird like Flash Thompson is Venom era. That stuff.
Yeah, the Flash Thompson and Venom was really good.
These weird things.
I tend to think of older stuff when I was younger.
The laughing fish.
There's a moment for me, probably because I read it around 10 years old, in the old Justice League International book where Despero, they fought Despero, the finned alien.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was
you have the eye right here.
It was so memorable because at the time up to that point they were doing vaudeville, and that was the storyline where they got serious, and like Despero came down and killed some of them, and like there was this giant fight that Adam Hughes drew, and I still remember that.
Nothing about that sentence made sense that what you just said.
Yeah, he did a couple
issues.
A
giant fight that Adam Hughes drew.
He did a couple issues back then. And I still remember it was like the moment the tide turned was with John Jones and Gypsy. It just sticks in my head. I don't know. Things stick in your head. Let's do
Astro City, the Samaritan flying through the clouds. In my dreams I can fly. Sticks in my head.
I think about Astros. I think about the Samaritan, the thing where he gets up and just is exhausted. Like his whole day is going from one thing to another. And it's just that it's really hard. Even though physically it's not. I think about that a lot. Those books are
great. We're down to our last handful. Ryan, do 49.
Roy from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm not going to do a Yinza accent. I've been thinking about this question since 1994. I have liked The Offspring since Smash came out. I was told they are punk, so I sought out some other punk bands. From time to time, I revisit punk, but I haven't liked it very much. Is there something out there that I would like, or will I only ever like The Offspring? By the way, the new Supercharged album is really good.
So I don't really like the Offspring, but not.
Do you consider
Aren't they
them
more
punk?
pop punk? They're more pop punk.
No, they're punk. They're a punk band. They came to Southern California punk band. They were on Epitaph. At the time Smash came out, that was the most successful independent album of all time. Like you have after that you had it was a whole thing. But no, they're a punk album. It's the same thing. Like Green Day isn't punk. I was like, they're a punk band. They've been a punk band forever. They sound exactly like they used to. They came from the East Bay. They were an indie label. They just did another album and has slightly glossier production. It's a punk band.
So is there
Of that era, Offspring.
is there anyone that sounds like them?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds to me like 90s Southern California punk. So I feel if you like that, like.
Well, so it's hard for me.
On Epitaph from that time. So if you want to check, like, you're not going to like the Fat Wreck stuff, that really fast skate punk stuff, but like Rancid, I feel like is sort of that era. It's a little more sky, but it has those sort of soaring. The song structures of those are very poppy, so they have an anthemic sort of bits and chorus.
Right. And to me the term pop punk is not a diss. Like I've come to embrace.
I wasn't meaning as a diss. It's just
no, I didn't think you were. I'm just saying for myself as somebody who I think there was a time where I aspirationally wanted to think of myself as a punk kid who really liked punk, but it's like, oh no, I like pop punk. That's actually the genre that is my preference.
I think of pop punk this is pre that. So like Blink 182 to me is like, this is the pop punk band.
Yes,
all those
absolutely.
Other ones that sounded like them. The Offspring presages that.
And Green Day is like still my favorite of that grouping. Like Sum 41 is kind of similar to Offspring in that sense. Like I could maybe see you liking some Sum 41 stuff.
I mean, like
they have such a California sound, the Offspring. Though.
Yeah. So like the label mates at that time are Rancid, are Bad Religion, are but I don't sound like them really.
Maybe some early Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, but like he's got that voice and it's kind of bouncy and it's a little party music-y.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's not the kind of punk I tend to listen to. So I wish I could answer this, but I don't think I have a good answer for it.
Keep searching.
By the way, that
for the stars.
Dexter from the Offspring has a doctorate in biology. Greg from Bad Religion has a doctorate, I think, also in biology. And then Milo from the Descendants is also like a highly trained technical scientist. What?
Get in a mosh pit.
Try the Descendants. Try Everything Sucks by the Descendants.
Ryan, do 50.
Marcus H wants to know, having just finished the Megalopolis podcast and listened to Goodfellas Minute in its entirety multiple times.
Damn.
What literature would you recommend for someone who wants to learn more about Robert Moses?
Josh, for context, the big surprise of Megalopolis is it's basically a Robert Moses movie.
Oh. More than that Motherless Brooklyn one?
No, that is Robert Moses. This is basically Robert Moses. There's only one answer to this, Josh, and the answer is...
It's Robert Caro's The Power Broker. It's
Bingo.
One of the finest books ever written. You will read the book, and when you finish it in a year and a half, you will need no other information, nor does more information exist. Everything you would ever need to know about Robert Moses was put into The Power Broker by probably our greatest living history writer.
Who's still alive somehow, and still writing about Lyndon Johnson.
And it's incredibly engaging and entertaining, despite being an absolute onslaught of information.
And the podcast 99% Invisible is doing a sort of Goodfellas Minute-esque take on the Power Broker by doing, it's not quite chapter by chapter.
I've downloaded those, but I haven't.
But they are doing sort of a review, overview, reflection on the Power Broker with Roman Mars and Elliot Kalin, who's one of the co-hosts of the Flophouse.
And when you finish the Power Broker in 4 years, you should listen to that.
All right, we have like 4 more questions. We're getting the answer. Josh, do 51.
Alex C says, what are the modern writer-artist combos that excite you the most when a new project is announced? Wade and Somni, Brubaker and Phillips, Rucka and Fernandez. What do you think makes these teams work so well together?
Well, all those, although Rucka and Fernandez haven't done work in a long time, but Brubaker and Phillips are still doing work. They still put up OGNs every year. Wade and Somni obviously had a book this week.
Wade and Mora.
Who are teams that
I hate doing it like this, but I am thinking of Tom King and Rick Remender.
Or Tom and Mitch.
Tom King and Mitch, yeah.
Yeah, Tom and Mitch. But like, I think of those as two writers who are very, very good at making sure that they have partners in their books who suit them and they really understand who. So when you say Tom and Mitch, that's true. But if I was to tell you, Tom and Everly, or like the way that those stories worked in the couple that we've seen, like they've been beautiful and brilliant. And then like Rick Remender and who's help?
I think
Which book?
I know, that's what I was trying to pick one.
Max Fiamara, or
yeah, he's killing that. I was trying to think of which books there are right now, but
so I guess what I would say is I think something that the two of you have cultivated as comics readers that I've sort of tried to draft off of as much as I can is the two of you tend to respect creators that are themselves curators of the art that they solicit for their books. And so like you both seem to really like, one of the reasons you love Remender is he doesn't just pick an artist that he wants to work with because he likes them. He finds an artist that's like right for the project, then writes it to the project.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sings because Rick is being intentional in the entire part of developing the story with that artist.
And he did that from jump. A lot of young writers will work with whoever they can get to work with them. And he was him especially more than anybody was extremely intentional all along the way of making sure that artist served the story, because without that, he's got nothing.
Yep.
It's the question of chemistry is a tricky one. What his question is, what do you think makes these teams work so well together? It's just like anything. What makes a actor and an actress, spark on screen? It's chemistry. It's unknowable. And so when you find a collaborator as a writer and an artist, or both, or a colorist and an inker, there's just something happens and the work sings, and you don't know why. It just does. Is it because the writer knows how to write for the artist? Yes. Is it because the artist knows how to translate the writer's script in an interesting way? Yes. It's all kinds of things. It's
and
because
there's whatever that magic element, that
a colorist knows how to really color this work. There's an unknowable chemistry, and that's why when you find it, they tend to hook onto it, and that's why Tom and Mitch know.
Yeah,
that they could work with other people.
But I do think there's
why would they?
I think there's intent. I think there's got to be some intentionality there too.
Of course, but the thing is, you find it and then you go, oh shit.
Yeah,
then you don't know if this is going to work until it happens, and you're like, oh, we work really well together. It's like Josh and I. Yeah. It just works really well, and it comes in and it works really well. So you just don't know until it happens. Then you go, okay, this works. Let's keep doing it.
Here, I'm going to say some things though.
Uh-oh.
I would love to see Arcudi and Guy Davis. I would love to see.
That's a great idea.
I would love to see Kirkman and Otley. I mean, they made a thing work.
Yeah.
There's
where did Otley go?
The TV show.
What TV show?
The Invincible show.
Oh, he works on the Invincible show.
I believe so.
Because he did Spider-Man and disappeared again.
Yeah.
He's like a criminal on the run. All right. This next question is a bunch of speed round questions. So what's going to happen is I'm going to read them. Then we're going to go Josh, Ryan, me.
Okay.
Answer them. No stories. This is just answer the question. So this is Pete F. from Minneapolis. Oh, that's the wrong. There we go. Pete F. from Minneapolis. Question. He's been thinking about this question for 25 years and 25 seconds. Question 1. At what age did you have your first drink, Josh?
5.
Ryan.
That's why I don't like beer.
I can't ask that. We can't ask that story. It sounds too sad. Ryan.
18.
I was, if you count a sip of champagne or something earlier, but really like 18. 2, what age did you start actually drinking with any kind of regularity, Josh?
Didn't.
You had it. You were drinking margaritas for
35.
Okay.
No
Ryan.
regularity.
21.
18. Question 3, coffee or tea? How do you take it, Josh?
Coffee, cream and sugar, not too much of either.
Ryan.
Coffee, black, as light a roast as I can get.
Tea, preferably herbal. Question 4. Do you bake or cook regularly? What is your favorite thing to make, Josh?
I cook every single night. My favorite thing to make lately has been like Asian noodles.
Ryan.
Yes, I also, like Josh, I cook every day. My favorite thing to bake is focaccia. My favorite thing to cook is brown food. Good at making stuff that's brown.
Okay. Yes, I cook and bake regularly. I do the most of the cooking, and my favorite thing to make is my mom's Spanish rice recipe.
Nice.
Question 5, Josh. Best pre-game prep for night out playlist. You can also pass if necessary. Josh passes. Ryan.
It's an audio book.
Pass.
Ryan also passes. I don't really like. I'm not 25. I don't pregame. I got to pass on this question.
Never done that.
6, quick. Do a shot or finish your drink. I can't finish this drink. It's too
Empty.
strong. I got to pass on that. 7. Josh, what did you want to be when you grew up?
What did I want to be?
Yeah, when you were a kid.
I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live.
Ryan.
Paleontologist.
Wow, all right. I wanted to be the center fielder for the New York Yankees. Number 8. What did you think adults had figured out that we totally don't? Josh.
Anything.
Ryan.
Anything.
Everything. You think as a kid adults know everything? They don't know shit. We don't know
No.
shit about shit. 9. What's your favorite Halloween costume you ever dressed up as? Josh.
Joker, 1989.
Ryan.
White Ninja Power Ranger. Not a joke. That's true.
White Ninja Power Ranger. I think it's when I was a kid. I don't know how old I was. My mom was an artist. She made a Greatest American Hero
Nice
costume for me. I have photos of it of me in the costume. 10. Josh, do you still dress up for Halloween? 0 stars if the answer is no.
I haven't for years, but last year I did.
Are you going to do it this year?
I'm thinking
weeks.
about it, but I will run out of time and forget.
Ryan?
I haven't for years, but this year I'm going to, and I dress up for the Ren Fair instead, which is a few weeks before Halloween.
Nerd.
I don't
I
always.
love the Ren Fair.
Halloween is like for kids, and then it's for sex, and then it's for kids, right? So like you're a kid, it's for kids, and then when you're in college and 20s, it's for sex, and then when you get
And
older,
then
it's for your kids.
For the result of sex.
But I don't have kids, so I don't really dress up. But this year, I actually got invited to a Halloween party, so I am dressing up this year.
If you don't have kids, I'm not sure you're doing sex right, Connor.
I'm doing it really right. 11. Where would you live if you could reasonably afford it, Josh?
Ireland.
Ryan.
The moon.
I mean, that's a whole other issue besides affording. I would be in Paris. Final question, Josh. Regardless of overall quality, what's your favorite horror franchise?
Alien.
Alien's not a horror franchise.
All right,
That's
go.
what I have. Anything
The
else?
first
would be
one is a horror
bullshit.
film, and none of the rest of them are.
Well, that's what it's like. I'll be like Jaws, just the first one. I don't watch. I don't do horror franchises. That's the closest I have for you.
Ryan?
There are some horror movies in there.
I kind of tend to agree with Josh. I'll say Wrong Turn just for fun.
I don't really watch horror. I mean, the only thing I can think of that I've watched more than one of is probably Scream.
Oh, okay. Actually, I'm going to change my answer. It's only 2 movies, but I think it counts. Happy Death Day. It's Groundhog Day if it was a slasher film. It's fantastic.
All right, we have 2 left. I'm just going to go ahead and read them. Nito Bizito from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania writes in origin episode. I think Nito writes in drunk. I've been listening for maybe 8 or 9 years, and I have a vague, cobbled together idea of the iFanboy origin story. But I'd like to hear an autobiographical, he says, episode about 2 young masters of their craft rising to stardom. That's Josh and Connor.
I'm not clear what the question is.
I guess he wants to hear our origin stories. Here, I'll go, and then you can each sort of draft off.
Set the tone, Carter.
Born in New York City, went to public school. High school, elementary school, junior high school in Manhattan, public high school in Queens. Went to college upstate New York, met Josh and Ron, came back to New York after college, lived in Brooklyn for 10 years working in television, moved to Los Angeles, worked in TV and video games and films and publishing. In the last 15 years, I've been living in Los Angeles, doing iFanboy for the whole time. Josh.
Born in New York, lived in Florida as a little kid, grew up mostly in Maine, went to upstate New York to go to school where I met Connor and Ron. I just studied television there, and it was because when I was filling out the form, it said, what do you want to do for a major? And I went, I like TV, and I clicked that. So then I moved to Los Angeles, and I lived there for 7 years and worked on shitty TV shows, started doing iFanboy around that time remotely in various versions, moved to New York. Pretty soon after that, we started doing iFanboy full-time. Have had a bunch of other jobs that are jobs, but I'm a dad. I have 2 kids. I have a wife and dogs. And
I just met your old boss at a party.
Which one? Oh, right.
The one from Nickelodeon. Yeah.
That was like 2 levels above. I don't know if I ever actually met him. Maybe I did.
Well, that's how he introduced himself. I used to work with Josh.
Yeah. I don't know. Like,
Sounds good to me. I don't know what he might be drunk.
Okay.
Ryan, biography.
Born in the Florida Panhandle, moved to Nashville, Tennessee, moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, ended up in Charleston, West Virginia. That's where I graduated high school. Parents said I could, they would support me
I
going
thought it was
anywhere.
from San Jose.
My parents said they would support me going anywhere for school in the lower 48. So I went as far away from West Virginia as I could, stopped at the Pacific Ocean and went to Santa Cruz, California for UCSC. Remember discovering podcasts when I needed to do a science. So one of my science classes, I needed to do an assignment, and I found out that the journal Nature had a podcast, and I started listening to those episodes. And then I just had the thought of like, what else am I interested in? Oh, comics. And I just typed comics into iTunes podcast and found iFanboy. And I distinctly remember listening to iFanboy like late at night while studying for an exam. And then the guys were at a convention in San Francisco, and I just went up and introduced myself, and the rest is history.
Haven't been able to shake him since he's like a barnacle.
Yeah.
The last point I'll make is my elementary school, PS 87, public school 87. Also, the public elementary school of Henry Winkler and Timothy Chalamet.
Public high school, Longfellow Elementary by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, who also shares my birthday, like Donald Logue and Liz Taylor.
Public high school, George Washington High School in Charleston, West Virginia, the same alma mater as Electra herself, Jennifer Garner.
There are no
My high school was also it also produced Edward G. Robinson.
Hey,
and was when I went there was the number 2 school in the city, but recently it overtook Stuyvesant as the number 1 high school. So suck it, Stuyvesant. All right, final question, and for the final question, I'm going to raise a glass of champagne for the final question from. Ooh, that's good. Kenneth J. from the Great Right North, our old friend Kenneth J. He gets deep here, so let's do a little sliding doors action. If the founders of iFanboy, Connor, Josh, and Ron, had never met, what do your lives look like now? It's almost impossible to.
I'm trying not to say that, but this is the center of so many things outside of like my family. Even that.
Well, let's take a step back. Do you think you're still in LA working on reality TV shows if we haven't done iFanboy? And that's impossible to ask, but do you think I think you've given up on that and just failed?
I mean, yeah, I probably would have.
Yeah.
I think, but see, then after that, everything changes because of the confidence that doing this has given me, and
we learned so many skills from doing the show that I can't even imagine what I've been doing now.
And not just the show, but doing the thing. We had to go meet people, talking in public, being able to be careful about what you were not careful about what you're saying, but being mindful of what you were saying, and so that you have the confidence to sort of speak. I mean, like I got like in my work, in all my jobs, I don't think about it anymore, but like I realized like I could speak in front of people and feel comfortable and not worry about what I was saying, and it's made a huge difference. And it took me so long to put that together. That's what's happening, but that's just one thing. So I don't know. All of my jobs have come from iFanboy for my whole adult life, even if not like directly. I have no idea.
It's impossible. I would
be a worse person. I would have a less fulfilling life.
I honestly have no idea. I'd be probably working at some shitty production job in either New York or I don't even think LA. I thought about moving to LA when I was 25. I didn't do it. The only reason I moved to LA was because iFanboy afforded me the opportunity to, because geographically, I'd probably be working some shitty TV production job in New York and being miserable. But I told someone recently that like every job since I was 25 has been either through someone at iFanboy, like Josh getting me a job, or someone who I met through iFanboy hooking me up. My current wife.
Oh, shit. I saw that.
I'm going to pay for that.
Oh no!
I met my wife at an iFanboy party. My friends here in LA, Mike Romo and Hank Nazerbach. I met them. You know, I met through iFanboy. Like everything that's good in my life has come from this show. So I can't even imagine what would happen. It's impossible because you go all the way back to us being 21 years old. You know, how do you even branch off from that? It just, everything that's happened since then is because of that.
Well, and I know I'm the newcomer here.
I'll need to meet my next wife through iFanboy because I'm gonna be fucked when I go downstairs.
I know I'm the newcomer here, so I certainly don't want to have the last word, but I do want to get to chime in just a little bit.
Please chime in.
You know, the two of you
we have less of an effect in your professional life. You'd be just fine without iFanboy.
You'd be surprised.
You would still be.
Dr.
You would still be Dr. Ryan Haupt.
I literally did mention to one of my associate directors the other day, like, you know, I have yet, like, I almost had like Darth Vader energy. I've yet to bring my full podcast powers to bear on this job. Like, there are things I could do that I've learned from being a podcaster and working with the two of you that I haven't yet fully unleashed on my daily life. But you know, the two of you and Ron are three of the most important professional mentors I've had in my life and in my career. And that is true for my day job and my career. It's not just true for the podcasting world. And actually, I say this somewhat tongue in cheek. I know that the impact it will have, but like, I actually do have to give most of that credit to Ron. I think Ron is like one of the most important
Fuck that guy.
professional mentors I've had in my life. So, and then
go back to Park Hall.
And then in terms of my personal life, like, yeah, like some of the most important relationships that I have are because not necessarily iFanboy,
your current wife,
but rooms I wouldn't have,
wife.
Right, rooms I wouldn't have been in. My first kiss with my current wife was at an ice skate party.
I told Ryan to go for his current wife.
He did. It's true. And you know, I mentioned Mike Romo earlier. Like, Mike and Whit are two of my favorite people, and some of my best memories of just hanging out and having a good time with folks involve all y'all. So it's yeah.
And you know, one of the things I'm most proud of is in this 19 years is that there's a ton of friendships that have happened because of it. People in the audience who, you know, hung out on the forums, whatever, and then started hanging out in real life, or people who, you know, like used to be Skype hangouts of the people from the audience that just wanted to hang out and talk. They used to do that weekly.
I had a great conversation with Paul Montgomery today.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of it, he's like,
about his thing.
Yeah. But he was like, at the end, he's like, I love you. You're a great person. I was like, I love you too. And you're a great person. And I just think that like saying, honestly, like you're saying, what would it be like without that? And it's like, well, what would it be like if you weren't married to whoever and had those kids? It's like, I'm fucking like, that's impossible. Like,
it's impossible. Yeah.
I don't know. But so a couple of years ago, I was laid off and I was having one of the dark times of the soul, and I was talking to Connor. And I said something. I was like, maybe we did this too long, and I screwed up, you know, my career, my profession, because I don't have my resume. It's a fucking nightmare. And Connor's like, everything good that ever happened to us, you know, certainly professionally, but personally, was because of iFanboy. And much like that Grant Morrison thing, that changed my perspective on it. And then since then, and I had that thought, but now I've really like leaned into it, like, oh, that's absolutely true, and I can describe it that way. And so it is an absolute good. It is the source of probably all of not all of, but so much of my validation. And like I said, that confidence, the confidence of being able to have done this for so long and get that that feedback from people, and that positive energy, and that sort of affirmation that you're not a worthless piece of shit. Like, somebody wants to hear the thing you say. You know, would you have Tom King today? Probably not. No.
Well, and the reason that
You're welcome, everybody.
He would say that, though.
You're welcome. The reason that I wanted to approach you guys at the convention so many years ago, I mean, I still, like, the episodes I'm not on, I still listen to. Like, I still keep up with the show. And I would say the tenor and the tone of the relationships and the way the show is done has not changed that significantly to me. So, like, when I was, you know, young and dumb, to me, listening to you guys in those early episodes, I just presumed that your audience was huge because it was a good product. And so it deserved the audience that existed in my mind. And so there was a couple of years back where I asked, I think, Josh, I was like, how did, you know, from the plebs in the crowd, like, how was I the one that got plucked, you know, me and Paul and some of the others, to be a voice and a part of the team? And Josh was like, well, you were one of the first. And I had no conception of that, because I'm like, well, how could I have been one of the first? Like, this is a great thing. Like, everyone should have been aware of it. And it just never at the time, it had never occurred to me that like I was early in approaching you all and telling you, hey, this thing is important and cool and good.
Well,
and makes
That's
me
part of it, though.
That's
Like,
also not
puts you in the
exactly accurate. I
place.
mean, the audience was huge. Just you were one of the first to. Most people are not going to engage; they're just going to listen,
stand out, and have
Yeah.
a thing to say,
Yeah.
and make an impact, however that is.
Well, I mean, I just it struck me in the moment that like it was surprising to me that there weren't 1,000 of me that had already come up and bothered you and told you how
there are not
important the show
1,000 of
was.
anybody. I mean, there's only one Paul Montgomery. There's only one Jim Ruchkowski.
That's
only
it
one Mike
right there.
Romo. I mean, that it was like. And I don't want to go on this road. But there's people that stood out immediately. Like these people are very, very talented, and they should be involved somehow. That's the thing. There's no one as good as Paul Montgomery and Jim Ruchkowski are two of the best writers I've ever met in any medium. That's stood out immediately.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean there weren't tens of thousands of people that were listening. There were, but it just they stood out. Anyway. We're going down the road. Let's end this show. We're going long. Oh, this is a long one.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, everyone who wrote in. Sorry if we skipped your question. We hate doing it, but it happens. But thank you for writing in. You wrote in at contact@ifanboy.com. We love having you on the show. Keep writing in. The email segments are always one of our favorite things to do, and this is why we do the anniversary show this way. Let's quickly do some plugs and get out of here. So, out now, right behind this show, you can find our Megalopolis Media Explode review, where Josh and Ron and I talked about what we've been enjoying, and then Josh took off. Ron and I talked about Megalopolis, and that was an interesting conversation. And behind that show, you can find our Joker Folie à Deux show, where me and Mike Romo talked about that film. Coming up this very week is our Talksplode show. Josh interviews writer Jordan Thomas, who was in the chat room earlier and who sent an email in, and who hangs out on our Discord, and that'll be a fun show. And then the following week, on Halloween, is our Booksplode review of The Dark Knight Strikes Again, which I'm in denial about having to read, but we'll figure that out. Ryan, how is Science Sort of doing? Is it still a thing? Or
It is. I have an episode for Croctober that I need to get edited and put out.
What is Croctober?
It's just, I mean, there's a Slothtober. There's just people just attach Tober to the end of topics and make the month of October about it.
Naptober.
This is going to sound like a wild departure from everything we've talked about. I had 2 chapters in a publication about crocodilian and archosaur paleobiology.
I feel like you make up words, and we just go,
So I mentioned the Panama Canal earlier. One of the reasons that book was my recommendation is I have a publication out about crocodilian fossils from the Panama Canal, and we recorded an episode with me and the co-authors of those book chapters, and I'm going to get that edited and get that put out. So
awesome! Congratulations!
Thanks.
You can find our library of 1,410 shows at ifanboy.com, and you can find it wherever podcasts are sold. You can follow us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram and find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out. And occasionally, the Best Week in Panels feature. Individually, we are C.S. Kilpatrick, J.A. Flanagan, and Ryan Haupt on Instagram.
Subscribe to youtube.com/ifanboy, where you will find all of our old video shows, and we post this show every week. Consider writing us a review, leaving a star rating, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, where that's possible, how that's possible. I don't know, some thumbs up thing. You could thumbs it up on the YouTube. You could do that. That's fine. If you have Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you go into your podcast app. You set the nobody's listening to this. Set iFanboy to auto download. It helps us out if you do that because they changed it. Pocket Cast. You can give the show a rating.
Ratings.
Thank you.
Ratings.
You need to subscribe and have downloaded a few episodes before you can rate it. Please take a few minutes and give us a nice rating or not. Whatever. Be honest. We appreciate you. And I need everybody to stay tuned and see what Conor's current marital situation becomes from week to week. We're going to check in. We're going to wish him luck. It was a big pile of shit he stepped in.
Listen, it was a good run. We had a good run.
I mean, you're tired. What he says, he's living in the past when he used to have a current girlfriend and he hasn't quite let go of that. And then he just did the math. He's like, actually, it's been many years. I should stop saying that.
I just sent some frantic text messages to damage control that while you guys were talking earlier.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get a response. So that's concerning. Thanks to everyone for listening over these 19 years. We've had so much fun doing it. And if anyone has a couch I can crash on, that'd be awesome. And
I mean, you
hopefully,
can see it. It's very short. You will
mean,
not fit.
Connor, you're coming to DC soon. Just make it a one-way ticket. And
That
it's
does have a
true.
pull-out
I might
bed.
have to.
we'll take care of you.
I'm going to see Ryan in a couple of weeks. But really, thank you. We this whole thing has been crazy and nuts. And 19 years is an unfathomable number. And couldn't do it without you listening. If you didn't listen, we wouldn't do it. And you didn't support the show, we couldn't do it. And so, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And until next year, when we do episode 1000.
By the way, I'm going to commit seppuku there. Will one of you be my second when we do that? Because Jesus fucking Christ.
Well, next year we'll have episode 1000. We will have hit 10,000 books that we've reviewed, and we will have over 2,000 total shows.
Hey, I want to feel good about myself. How many downloads have we had?
I don't know. When we changed providers, we lost all that data.
We're in the tens of millions.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to hear that number.
We were in the 10. We were close to that. We left before we left our last.
Well, we mentioned like some of the celebrities who listen to the show, and every once in a while I'll see somebody on something, and I'll be like, hey, that person probably knows what I sound like. That's kind of cool.
Well, until next week, and until next year, and until next time, I'm Connor.
I'm Ryan. If anyone wants a chapter of a crock book, I'll send you the PDF.
I just like to take this time to talk about Israel and Palestine.
Oh,
and I think
where's the button?
I'm not even supposed to make the joke about the joke. I'm Josh. Thanks everybody for listening. Did you laugh at that? Anyone? Anyone at all?
All right, that's the show. Thanks everybody. All right, that was fun. Good job.
That was fun.
You guys hanging in there?
It went.
Somebody said they're going to hit me up for the croc chapter.
Oddly
I
enough.
couldn't tell, so I was starting to skip pretty aggressively. I didn't know if you guys were looking to bail or not. So
I'm not that tired. I just have to pee.
I did take a short nap.
I noticed.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Do you remember, Connor? Do you remember in Dodge or whatever it was called?
Fall and Dodge or Dodge
There
and
you go.
Hell.
Whatever
Yeah.
it is. There's this bit in there at the very beginning where Richard says, like, every day he likes to take a nap, but it doesn't really matter how long or what it is, as long as there's at least a moment where he loses consciousness as a sort of reboot. I think about it.
Okay, I
all
have
the
two
time.
thoughts about that. One, I don't know if it's the shows I watch or whatever, but I see the Cologuard ad all the time, which is the at-home colonoscopy test.
Ugh.
And it's like the whole value add is like you don't have to go to get your colonoscopy. And I'm like, why would you not want to? It's the best nap ever.
Yeah.
Number two, I'm about 15% of the way into the new Stevenson book.
Mhm.
And this is not a spoiler. Glad I still don't know what it's about.
Okay.
But so far, it entirely takes place during the Russian Revolution.
Holy shit.
yeah. I was not expecting that. There's a part in San Francisco during the building of the Golden Gate Bridge, but so far everything else is taking place in Russia before, during, and after the Russian Revolution. It bounces around time.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Having just finished Zodiac, which takes place in late 80s Boston, and it's very much a book written by a young man.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Mike Rummel's in the chat. Mike, there's a chapter that's all about them at the construction site of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's very interesting, but I still don't know what the fuck it's about. I'm loving it.
Stuff.
Let's wait for Ryan to come back and say goodnight. But I appreciate everyone hanging out with us. I'm sorry we couldn't interact with you more. I saw people asking questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to them. But
Respect for Romo hanging out forever.
Seriously.
And I say that to people just because, like, he knows us, so it's not like he needs to hang out with us more. Just,
I'm hanging out with him tomorrow. We're going out. Assuming I can finish the edit in time. Well, I had fun, Josh. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the time we've spent together. And
yes, I was almost offended at the question of what would we do if not for this. I was like,
well, I mean, it was more
not
like
offended, but it's like, what would I do without a skeleton? I don't.
It's interesting, right? Like, what is it's such a bizarre. Like, what would your life be like? It's like it's crazy. Anyway, Ryan's back, so we can say goodnight.
Josh, I still haven't cracked it, but I had this in my fridge the whole time.
Oh my god, is it cold? Because
yeah,
if it's not cold, run like hell.
I'm not gonna eat it right now.
Josh, do you see Ryan all pixelated?
Yeah, he's been like that most of the time.
Okay,
really?
It's not my internet connection. Okay. Good.
No, but you looked pixelated for a lot of it.
I did.
Yeah.
That's strange. You've been
Like
fine
you're
for
fine
me.
now. Like I am crystal fucking clear
Oh,
on
yeah.
mine.
You're crystal clear the whole time for me.
All three. I mean, all of us have been clear. I'm sorry, I didn't
That's very
realize I was
strange.
having issues. I mean, I've like turned off anything that was like running in the
I don't think
background.
it's you.
is
I
all
think-
off.
I don't know.
Mike's
I think your mic's
saying
off.
Ryan was the worst throughout. So for them, Ryan was.
I'm sorry.
Your
Yeah.
your camera's probably less.
No,
sharp.
but his bandwidth has been.
No, I get that.
Everyone in the chat saying Ryan's been pixelated the whole time.
Oh shoot, I'm sorry about that.
You think about that like a filter. Took all the wrinkles out. You look great.
So I shut down like all the other computers and
It's fine.
did my best.
Is
Sorry,
it your
team.
current wife torrenting stuff?
No, I've tried to teach her. She can't quite figure it out.
Interesting. All right. Well, I had fun. I need to eat a little bit of food, but I would hang out more. But I gotta go. So if you're a patron, we'll have our next patron hangout in November. And if you're not a patron, consider being one because we do this every month and we hang out for an hour or so, sometimes 3 hours, and just yeah, your hair is terrific. We all know it.
No, I'm looking for the gray. It doesn't show up. It's in the sun. It does.
Yeah, what's that be like? My Reed Richards bullshit over here.
Ryan, how do you did you ever have any psychological problem when you turned full gray?
No, because I started turning gray in high school.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, like the thing about turning gray in high school was there was always like some girl who wanted to like pluck the gray hairs, and she'd be like, "Can I pluck your grays?" And it's like, well, okay, if going gray means like women will touch me, yeah, that's fine.
It also depends on where the gray is. If it's like your back, that's a no.
Oh, it's been migrating south for a little while now, Josh.
So wait, your head's fully gray.
My head's full of gray.
Your whole body's not fully gray.
For a while, I had the red hairs.
I realize this is getting personal.
I was gonna say this is going south.
I'm very
literally
curious.
and
I
figuratively.
figured your whole body would be gray.
I had the red hairs in my beard like Christian Bale for a while. Now those have started going gray, and I have like the stupid badger mohawk thing. I've gotten a few on the chest and a few south of the equator.
That's interesting.
But it's been working its way. It started here and it's slowly worked its way down.
God, the
so
human body's so weird.
You guys, I have below my neck. I have upwards of 8 hairs on my body.
Josh is the little baby boy.
Yeah, I still have very few gray hair. I have a few gray hairs in the chest that have started persisting, and then yeah, it's
Okay, Josh. Let's not.
Look, there's a couple. It's only on the left side. I barely have armpit hair.
Wow, you pioneered the whole, no body hair movement.
I know. I have girl arms.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We had a great time. We'll talk soon, and bye-bye.
I don't even smell bad when I get sweaty.